Listen, you smell something?
Human emotions are materializing in the form of a viscous psychoreactive plasm with explosive supernormal potential.
What a discovery, a psychoreactive substance.
Do you know what this equipment is used for?
Boggle or Super Mario Brothers?
We'll have fun!
Yeah! They're still doing it. Really quite good work there.
My friend, don't be a jerk.
We've got no choice. Call the Ghostbusters.
Super Jackpot!
Welcome to Extraplasm Podcast. It's the only podcast on the internet that's interested in making sure we resolve the most critical of debates in the Ghostbusters fan community, such as whether or not the Cheetos in Slimer's Trap are flaming hot or original. I'm your host, Jim Maritato, aka Vink Maniac on the internet, and joining me as co-host for this episode and sitting in for the entire time we're going to be here and talk about Ghostbusters and obviously a trailer is, of course, the venerable, the awesome Jason Fitzsimmons of Ghostbusters News. Jason, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, and I'm going to vote flaming hot.
I think you're probably right about that. I kind of think it's probably flaming hot too. Look, if they didn't make a good promo out of this, like if Frito-Lay didn't make flaming hot Cheetos that are going to have Slimer on the bag that I can buy in March, something's wrong. Like that to me is
absolutely
it should be a given. Those are not cheese doodles. Those are very clearly like Cheetos, and not brand. Like the big poofy kind. You know, they're very. And
can
much
I say
that.
Just how much joy seeing Slimer just hit with his lips encrusted in Cheeto dust? How just beyond happy it made me. It's the little things in life you got to find joy in.
Yeah, I mean, I said this when we saw the reveal of him in the Empire magazine stuff a few weeks ago, that I was really excited that he was back and that I was really interested. And we're going to talk about this today. I mean, like, look, just straight up, if you are a fan of Extraplasm Podcast, but you live in the bubble of trying to be spoiler free, like turn this episode off and run away. Download it first so I can get the metrics. Help me out. I'm kidding. Leave a positive review and then don't listen. But like, I think that, you know, I want to be clear. Jason and I are going to talk a lot about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire and everything that's come out in this most recent trailer in this episode. We're going to do a quick rundown of the headlines and stuff so we know what's going on with the news of the week. But a lot of this episode is going to be us digging into the particulars of that trailer. And I think that you've probably done enough watching and recapping that we'll kind of just do this more freeform rather than being like, let's go beat by beat on the trailer. Because I think that's been done. So, but does that make sense?
It totally makes sense.
Okay, cool. But I'm glad you're here. You know, obviously it's always great to have you on the podcast, and you've obviously have had your logo frozen over and all kinds of things have happened to you.
Yes.
So since you've started being impacted by the death chill up there in Canada, are you okay?
I'm doing fine. And you know what? That's kind of funny. Sony Pictures, they kind of extended the olive branch a bit to a number of different fan pages and official pages and such. And they were like, you know, we're going to freeze your social media page. Can I just tell you how frightened I was when I got a message from Sony Pictures saying, can we freeze your social media account? Being a fan page, I mean, that kind of frightened me. I like, what do you want to do with it? Like, for this isn't good. No. They had to explain it to me.
You're like, how is that different from removing my Facebook page?
Yeah. I mean, you guys helped me get it back, and now you're gonna like freeze it. What? This doesn't make any sense. You build me up just to like knock me down. Come on. But it's cold outside. I mean, it would have been kind of nice to actually had Frozen Empire, you know, released back in December with all this crazy coldness that we've been experiencing over the past month. But gives us something to look forward to in March there.
Yeah, I got asked recently, you know, how come your logo didn't get frozen over? And I said, because my podcast is the one that's here to save the others.
Hey, there you go. There you go. I mean, but at the same time, too, maybe it's a blessing. I mean, with all the, Facebook pages and everything kind of going down there, maybe it's algorithm based and Facebook's just taking a look at the logos and they're going to see tons of pages that are frozen. And then, well, rather than freezing, they're just going to delete all these pages, which would be horrible. Which is just horrible.
It is weird, right? Like in the weeks before the logos got frozen over, you know, like yours is frozen over. I think YHS has theirs frozen over. Mm-hmm. Right. Maybe GB fans as the logos got frozen over, I thought it was funny because in the weeks before, everybody who was getting their pages pulled were people who had made their own frozen over logos. And I was like, wait, this seems like could be the kind of thing where like Skynet goes off the rails next week and just says they're all invalid.
But no, I do want to, if anyone from Sony is listening, I do want to thank them, though. It's kind of a cool thing to kind of be involved in. And just to kind of play a very, very small hand when it comes to the hype surrounding the trailers. I was going to say trailer, but trailers when it comes to Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
Yeah, I think it's great that, there's that sort of connection happening between Ghost Corps and different, fan groups and different fan publications and things that are happening out there. And I think it's cool. Not to make a really terrible pun because we're talking about Frozen over logos, but I am totally stoked about these trailers and I want to talk about them for sure. So we should do that in a moment. But before we do, we should get through you're here, you're the newsman. So we should really talk about a few Ghostbusters headlines.
Still making headlines all across the country, the Ghostbusters are at it again.
Today, the entire eastern seaboard is alive with talk of incidents of paranormal activity.
Call-in topic today, ghosts and ghost busting.
Extraplasm, read all about it. Ghostbusters headlines coming at you.
So first up in Ghostbusters headlines, we won't put any of the trailer stuff in here, right? Because we're going to talk about that in depth, everyone. So we won't be like, there was a trailer and this is how it came out as a news item, because we're going to talk about that. And you know that. You listen to this podcast, you obviously know there's a trailer out, or otherwise you wouldn't be here. The couple pieces of news that we should talk about since last time we had a podcast. Issue number 3 of Back in Town, the Ghostbusters Dark Horse Comics 4-issue miniseries that's going to be coming out, has had its cover revealed, which is pretty cool. So if you haven't already pre-ordered that is going to be arriving on May 29th, because there's going to be one of those each month, beginning March, April, May, June, right? And then it'll be done by July. So issue 3 is now available for pre-order, and you can talk to your local comic book store about grabbing that. The synopsis for issue 3 says that as tensions rise in the city and the Spengler family, Phoebe discovers the entity targeting the Ghostbusters, the malevolent Madame Malveaux, which I'm like, oh, there's French people who are involved in this. I wonder if they're Canadian. It's your fault, Jason. It's your people. But on her own and outmatched, Phoebe escapes through the sewers and stumbles into supernatural stand-up. Follow the Ghostbusters official return to New York City with the third installment of this all-new series. Ghostbusters Back in Town features a script by David Boer, art by Blue Delaquanti, and colors by Mildred Lewis. So I think this is kind of funny. Phoebe's going to be running around in the sewers. She doesn't run into the Ninja Turtle. She's going to run into the ghost of Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's an endless supply of actual comedians that are dead. And you're like, the ghost of Jerry Seinfeld.
I know.
Who's alive? I mean, you mean Rodney Dangerfield, Sam Kinison. The list goes on.
It's George Carlin running an open mic. That's really what it is.
Hey, that's good. I don't know if she's old enough to get into a George Carlin show.
He's like, are you old enough to be here? And she's like, I'm 16 as opposed to I'm 12.
Yeah, it's weird that we haven't actually seen the interior of any of these pages, these comics yet. But I love the covers. The one with Phoebe on it's great. There's also the standard cover, which has a big pigeon in it, which is really making me hope that I don't know, they'll throw a Home Alone 2 reference in there. The pigeon lady will just freak out as whenever pigeons becomes a big, massive, horrifying ghost that's trying to destroy New York City. But again, little things that make me happy just thinking about that. But no, I'm psyched for this. It's a very high bar though for them to hit. The fact that issue 1 doesn't arrive until into March, and they're going to be going, not up against IDW because that's been long gone, but
sure.
For them to live up to Dan Schoening and Eric Burnham and so on and so forth, Louis Delgado, the talent behind that comic, I'm really hoping they hit this one out of the park.
Yeah, I am too. I've said this, that I thought that there would be more than just kind of a limited miniseries when they announced what was going on with these comics. Off at what was that, Ectofest, whatever it was that we were at, and talking about what would be coming and sort of in sequence together when they announced the video game stuff and the movie and all that stuff together kind of and as a loose canon. And I think it's kind of interesting that they have these 4 books planned out, and I want to see more of them. I want to see these 4 books do well, so that way they decide to do another 4. I've never been, admittedly, the biggest fan of reading comics from week to week or month to month. I'll go out and get a graphic novel though and pick it up and burn through it. And so I would love to see enough Dark Horse stories to fill a good compendium that then you could buy and put on a bookshelf and be cool, I've got all these stories together. But we'll see. I really wanted to do well for that reason, but also because it would be great to hear stories. And I gotta say, I really want to know what jokes Phoebe's going to tell in this comic book. Like
Yeah.
they have one of the covers has her on stage, like about to tell jokes. I'm like, well, we already know that she's tried to make friends by telling jokes from Afterlife. So what really bad dad jokes are coming next?
It's also great too because the fact that both Gil Kinnan and Jason Reitman, I mean, they had a hand in this 4-issue comic series. You know, they kind of gave their input. So the fact that she is on stage would tell me that in Frozen Empire, she has not lost any of her comedic timing. And to me, that was one of the best parts of Afterlife is those horrible jokes. You know, the hamster and the cigarette one was just highbrow. Loved it.
Yeah, I have said that since I saw the movie, that one of my favorite things about that movie is the terrible jokes that she tells. You know, they're just kind of fun and goofy, and they're like kid jokes that you feel like would come off the inside of like a Bazooka Joe package or something. I mean, it'll be very interesting to see how that comic book plays out. And I really hope that we get to see more than just those 4 mini-series issues of it. We'll see, though. Beyond that, the other things we should talk about that are not trailer related and we should touch on. There is a charity auction that's happening. If you want to get a Ghostbusters Frozen Empire poster, there's a charity auction that is going to benefit, is it St. Jude's Children's Hospital, right?
Yes, their research hospital.
Yeah. So that is something that you can hop on board and grab that is essentially a poster that's signed by all of the cast of Frozen Empire. It is an 11x17 mini poster. This is very cool, but I'm going to say this and I'm going to be kind of dumb about it. My Patton Oswalt looks better than this.
I'm honestly,
I saw it and I was like, my Patton's better than that one.
Well, I gotta admit, I'm quite surprised. Like, I shouldn't be surprised because it does come straight from Ghost Corps. Like Eric Reich, you know, the man behind Ghost Corps, the Magic Man, if it was, he was the one that kind of, I believe, put this whole thing together.
Yeah.
And it's just cool the fact that it's not like it's the majority of the cast, like it's the entire cast. Aside from like outside of like going to like William Atherton, when you're talking about the core Ghostbusters in this film, when you're talking about like the R&D research facility. It's all of those. Like it's a crazy amount of people that have signed this, and already like price wise, like this thing is going through the roof. Still like 12 or 13 days left. It's going to be a huge success.
Yeah, at the time that we're talking, the estimate on this I believe was $1,500 through Charity Buzz, and the current bid is $2,500 with 19 bids. So
yeah,
I'm kind of being funny about this, but like our friend Tom over at the containment unit, Tom Henry. Just had a successful trip finally to go get a Bill Murray autograph. He went all the way to Texas to Bill Murray's event that he was doing there. And this is not his first time trying to go to one of Bill Murray's events to get Bill to sign something Ghostbuster oriented. And he's had an experience in the past where he couldn't get it done. And he finally got it done. It's taken Tom several trips on several planes to go to several events that cost a lot of money to be able to get time with Bill Murray. So you might be thinking like, wow, $2,500 is a lot to bid on this, right? But just the Bill Murray alone, it probably gives you some value. But like you have a Paul Rudd on here. It's not an easy thing to go get. You know, Dan's getting much harder to get, and getting them all together is super difficult. Like I'm joking about this Patton Oswalt thing, but like I have the same poster and I had Patton sign it, and then I sent it off to the containment unit because they will see McKenna and Finn this coming month. So they'll add that to my poster. But if I want to get the rest of these, I'll be chasing everyone until
I mean, you'll be
probably
chasing
won't
them,
get it done.
And the fact too, you got to think about this, and I don't want to get like crazy dark here, but this is it's 2024. It says right on the poster. It's a brand new poster. It's for a Frozen Empire. I mean, you have the cast to run around, do it yourself. Not only are you going to like blow a ton of time and money, but the odds of getting everyone, because some of the cast, they're getting a little up there. Like you may not necessarily see Dan Aykroyd. You may not have a choice to, or an opportunity to get Dan Aykroyd's signature in the next couple of years, maybe 5 years. Who knows what can happen between now and then, right? Like there's a lot of unknown. So the fact to get everyone's signature on this at one time, it is a collector's dream. It's a holy grail piece for collectors. And especially if you're an autograph collector, I mean, there is so many big coups here just in one shot.
Yeah. And I think it's funny too, that it comes with a certificate of authenticity that is signed by Eric Reich.
Yeah.
So it's like, is it Beckett certified? Is it JSA? No, it's Eric Reich certified.
Yeah, that's good. That's good enough for me. Well, let me tell you.
I mean, I would be fine with it.
Yeah.
That's a really cool thing. I don't know who's going to win it, but whoever it is probably going to have a lot of money. But it's all going to a great cause. It's going to help St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. So if this is like one of your holy grails is to get all the people from this movie on one poster, strike while the iron is hot and go and grab it. I don't know when this closes. 12 days, right? So this is going to end on February 12th. So I just said I don't know, and it's right on the screen in front of me. So February 12th, 12 days, 17 hours, 18 minutes from the time we're recording, which means less than that for you as you're listening at home.
That is how time works. Yes.
Yes. And if you're listening like 2 months in the future because you're one of the folks who listens to Extraplasm and slow burns it, I'm sorry you missed out. Okay. So moving out of discussing the charity options of going out and winning, an expensive auction, which one person will get to do and no one else will, because that's how auctions work. There are some other things to know about in terms of merchandise and things coming up that are entertaining in Ghostbusters world. Trick or Treat Studios, we had talked last week and you covered this on Ghostbusters News, has the license for a whole bunch of, great new stuff. The thing I had not yet talked about was that they apparently have wrapping paper, which I think is like, I know this is going to sound stupid, but I'm so excited about that. Like I've had to make Ghostbusters wrapping paper. Like I never want to do it again. I have to be able to buy wrapping paper that is Ghostbusters wrapping paper would be great. But having to make Ghostbusters wrapping paper is a pain in the ass.
And I'm sure like these guys, like they deal mainly in like horror licenses and stuff like this. I mean, these guys got to be making a killing. Like the hardcore fan base out there for things like Texas Chainsaw and Killer Clowns and stuff like that. Like I'm sure there's people out there that they buy like a massive amount of rolls in one go. And I know I'm totally going to do that with Ghostbusters. And it's so weird too, like to just sit back and think like, am I actually going to buy wrapping paper to collect? And damn it, probably all three of them. Sure. Yeah. And also at the same time too, like I'm thinking to myself, like if I wrap gifts with this for somebody else and I give them the gift and they just tear into it, they just shred it, they tear it apart. I'm going to hate that person. Next year, they're not getting just nothing from me. Just nothing at all. But no, in all honesty, it's so cool. And I will let everyone know if any of my family's listening or if anyone out there is planning to send me anything. All future gifts must be wrapped in Trick or Treat wrapping paper.
Got it. And your plan then is, of course, to slowly deconstruct it and unfold it and try to decrease it and save it in segments so that way you can have an entire collection of it. Is that a good strategy? All on the walls. No, it's really cool though. Trick or Treat, I mean, they so far from what I think we've seen of them, I'm sure there's gonna be more stuff coming, but I think they're just going on all cylinders. They're hitting out of the park. The masks look great. That Slimer looks incredible. I love the keychains they're doing, the in-universe ones there with the Ecto one and the Sedgwick Hotel. I know some people were kind of like complaining like, oh, why does the Sedgwick Hotel have slime on it? Like that totally ruins it. No, it brings the casual fan in. It makes the casual fan instantly realize, oh, this is where Slimer stays. This is the Sedgwick. Yeah. I don't know what it's called. I just know of it as a hotel. So yeah, slime makes sense on that. I love everything they're doing. Of course, that 19 by 19 inch light up sign looks great. All the wall decor, that Slimer wall decor, my God. Yes. Light up wall decor looks really great.
Oh.
I'm not sure. Like, I don't know. Maybe you know the answer to this question. Is the 19 by 19 inch sign double sided or is it just a one sided sign that goes on the wall?
I don't think they've officially said anything yet. I don't know, to be honest.
Got it.
Yeah. Hopefully we get an answer soon. I mean, from what I saw, like presented at the, that Las Vegas expo that they had it set up there. And you can see like around the sign, it was still white. But the sign in New York and the sign in the movie, like it's black around the sign.
Right.
So I'm assuming it's still very much prototype right now. Because I cannot see Trick or Treat making a no-go sign and leaving the sides white. Maybe they'll surprise me. Maybe they'll do that and I'll hate it. But I don't see it happening. I see them maybe releasing something that I love. Like I've got their Toxic Avenger mask. I got some of their other stuff out there, the Texas Chainsaw. I love the stuff they do and I'm really excited again here just for everything. And the fact that they're doing the Gray Lady, the Library Ghost. She's finally getting her comeuppance when it comes to merchandise again. I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to buy that mask. Even if I don't wear it, I'm just going to like put it in my house somewhere and just have it as part of my display because it's crazy good. And we've never really had, a good rendition of that character that is kind of like a bust or anything, and I think it'll look really cool, like on a mannequin head or something that's just tucked away, and maybe, I don't know, we'll figure something out. This is all products or projects in mind, but not in practice yet. So,
and it's such a crazy contrast too, because like last summer they showed off the metal signs of like the Terror Dog, or it was like Spook Central, and I think the Ghostbuster like Firehouse, and like it was kind of like, and I love Trick or Treat, but seeing that first, I was like, oh, that's what you guys. Okay,
yeah, it was a little lukewarm, right? It was
like I don't really like a metal sign. I don't need this,
right?
And now I'm all about it, and seeing what else they release. Like, I mean, they've gotten into the prop game. Like, you can buy a Texas Chainsaw Massacre chainsaw that has the sounds and everything like that, and it looks great to the movie. They're making like 5-inch scale action figures. They're doing figures also, like, again, so many different licenses, B movies and everything. I know Hasbro is the master toy licensee, but I'm kind of curious when it comes to different scales and sizes and such, whether or not we can maybe see something from Trick or Treat down the road when it comes to Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I have to say I agree with you that when I saw those signs come out last year, I went, I don't know if I need like a no parking sign, right? Like for like Ecto 1 parking only or something along those lines. I just don't know that I needed that. And what they have on offer now is a lot more impressive. And I'm sure they've had time to develop it. We probably got sort of like, hey, here's some quick things we could release with the license in the time we have it at the end of Q4.
Get it in time for Halloween, right? Like get it out in time for Halloween last year.
Yeah.
That's it.
So I'm stoked about that stuff. It looks really great. And I'm definitely going to get wrapping paper because if nothing else, I just want to also be able to use it to like wrap up boxes and use them for like doing kitchen counter reviews and other things to be like, look, I've got like a Ghostbusters themed little pedestal or whatever. Cause then I can just wrap up cardboard boxes and use them that way. So,
and I don't want to throw like any prices out there. But like so many people, they were like, oh my God, like this, talk about like the light up stuff, like the sign, the Slimer, the Terror Dog, the wall decor. There was quite a few people I saw, they were like, oh my God, this is going to be so pricey. Trick or Treat stuff typically isn't. Like, it's good quality stuff that doesn't really break the bank. Yes, it does cost money. I mean, if you want something good, you're going to pay for it. But we're not talking like a Hollywood collectibles group Terror Dog head or anything like that when it comes to cost. You're not going to be paying $1,000 for this thing for these individual items. No. So to me, that's really exciting that we can kind of get more of the casual fan in it. And at the same time, too, seeing these Slimers like at conventions, like this thing's, it's going to look so good. I want it now. I just really hope though I know they're not going to do it, but maybe release like an optional piece that you can put like in behind him coming in the wall. So you just have like a big butt on the other
side of the wall.
Oh yeah. Now, yeah. Optional upgrade for like an extra $100. Oh, light up cheeks. Woo-hoo.
That would be kind of funny if you had like adjoining rooms, and on one side of the wall you had his front, and on the other side you had his back.
Cool.
That would be
with like the dripping slime coming out of his butt. Oh my God.
Hey, if they don't do it for your house, they at least need to make that for like the Wonderverse. That should be a thing that they totally put at the Wonderverse. That's what I'm calling for. Couple other things we haven't talked about yet. Then we'll get into the trailer stuff for sure. The Ecto 1 apparently is expected to return to Universal Studios, as you've reported on. There was a CBS Fairmont, West Virginia affiliate on WTV who reported on the sale of, I guess, not an Ecto 1, but a Cadillac that had been kind of like a sign for the 5-star auto car wash in West Virginia somewhere. And I guess someone bought that sign, bought the pieces of the car that were the sign, and it turned out it was Universal Studios.
I had quite a few people message me, and they were like, yeah, this car was like a local legend. And it's like, oh, you guys don't have a lot going on in West Virginia, do you? I kid. The funny thing is, actually, when I first wrote the article, I kind of screwed up. I wrote it was in Virginia and not West Virginia, and I angered a lot a
That's a big difference for people.
I woke up the next morning and people were like, they were coming for my head. But yeah, Universal, apparently they've got this Cadillac now, and it's not a Miller Meteor. Definitely a totally different style or a different model, but there are similarities when it comes to the Ecto, like the front grille, the side fin, and stuff like that. And as I kind of like alluded to in the article, likely the one that we're going to see at Universal eventually, like it's going to be kind of like a chop shop. Yeah, that's, well, it's not illegal, but they're going to Frankenstein it. It's going to be a Frankenstein.
It's a Frankenstein, but now I like the idea that there's a chop shop, that Universal Studios has a chop shop and spray bay, like I'm in Grand Theft Auto.
Oh,
and they're like, we got to just steal cars and cut them apart and repaint them, and then we use them over at Horror Nights or something.
I'm just gonna I'm gonna go to like Universal and like see the Ecto and like hop into it, just jump into it Grand Theft Auto style and just drive around the whole park looking for that chop shop. I gotta get my getaway. Make it black with like purple lights.
Right, it'll be black or purple lights.
Yeah, I want Danny's original vision. But exciting. We don't really know for sure what is happening at Universal. Right. I mean, if you follow the online Universal groups, there's a lot of talk, and I mean, there's talks about parades, there's talks about possible return with Halloween Horror Nights. It's all speculation at this point, but yeah, a lot of people talking about Ghostbusters, and it seems like Ghostbusters, out of all the licenses, that's the one where people are like, yes, it's coming back, we just don't know how.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a 40th anniversary year, so you got to figure that folks who have connections with the franchise and have worked out those licenses are going to take advantage of them, because this is the year to do it. I mean, it's just the big anniversary year.
I'm curious if they do Halloween Horror Nights, if they do a return for Ghostbusters. They've already done Ghostbusters, right? Like they did the first one. So I would assume they're going to go full on Frozen Empire. Like if they wind up doing something, like I can't see them doing Ghostbusters 2, even though I would like live there if they had a like river of slime. I would just, there'd be like a week where Ghostbusters news would just go dark and I would just be chilling in that Van Horn sub like transit system.
Wait, in a lazy river, river of slime with a tube.
Yeah. Get myself like a little raft there, you know?
See, I was thinking more like it would be kind of like going to the Bahamas or going to Vegas and there's like a poolside bar, but it's a poolside bar run by ghosts and you're in the slime river the entire time, like a pool. That would be an attraction that you could go to. It would be exciting.
I could, you know, if I was there long enough, I could become part of the attraction. I could just be like, if there's just like a big circle, I could just like loop around, you know?
Yeah.
And be like, river of slime.
You could just wave at people who showed up to it.
Be like, vote Lenny.
What's kind of fun to consider, though, is that even if it is Frozen Empire themed, you'll probably still get elements of Ghostbusters too. Because we are seeing from the trailer and we're seeing from other stuff that like things we know from Ghostbusters 2 totally exists in the Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, universe. So
oh man, you know how cool it would be if they had like an R&D division and like, you could like just try stuff out. Like here's a slime blower and just, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That would be cool. I would also be totally fine with them deciding to bring some sort of like interactive ride for the long-term haul at Universal Parks, but I'm not going to hang my hat on that happening. I think that Sony is working on their own entertainment stuff like Wonderverse and figuring out how to bring entertainment experiences to different theme parks out in Europe and Japan and whatnot. But I'm not really sure this is going to mean anything bigger than potentially maybe like a Horror Nights thing, but we don't really know. We'll see. But it's kind of interesting to think about the idea that Universal is at least, on the East Coast, at least for the park in Florida, because, they've got a car that came from the East Coast that they can probably just drive on down and start working on and do what they're going to do with for whatever they're going to do with it. So, yeah. Now we'll see if there's like a car wash somewhere in California that also has a Cadillac that they can buy for Hollywood.
Yeah, I don't know. I did not go to the last Ghostbusters Halloween Horror Nights. That was back in 2019. But I'll tell you, if they do one for the 40th, like I'm so there. I kicked myself for missing out on the last one, and honestly, I'm looking for any good or bad reason to go to Universal. Love it, and the fact that it's the 40th anniversary. Like all I can think of now is the amount of merch that'll probably come along with that. If they're doing something Ghostbusters related, there is so much exclusive merch at Universal. Oh, and yeah. Just excited.
Yeah. Although I think I did hear that like they're going to be closing some of the like fan merch stores at Universal. I think that's the thing I heard a few weeks ago. I might be wrong about, but I feel like I read that. So this is the part where I didn't prepare everybody because we were like, we're going to talk about the trailer. I'm like, wait, What about the Universal Fan Store? I don't remember now.
I recall back in actually 2019 when the Ghostbusters had their first Halloween Horror Nights there, and I guess they're only thus far. They were actually selling, what was it, the Lacto Cooler, like the not official Ecto Cooler beer of like another company. And I always thought that was so weird, the fact that you have the official Ghostbusters license there, but at the same time you are selling this drink that is, it's not a bootleg in taste, but it's definitely a bootleg in name.
Right. Yeah. I was right about this. The Universal Legacy Store closed effectively January 7th. So it doesn't mean like all merch at all parks are gone. The Universal Legacy Store that existed there that had lots of props and models and things apparently closed up. So if that was a thing you enjoyed, it may not be a thing you'll enjoy later, but that was apparently moved to make way for a new attraction. Maybe it'll be a Ghostbusters experience. It's Raise a Cult.
Mm-hmm.
You can go there. You can go to Universal. You can bring objects that you think are haunted, and you can.
It's
sell them
actually
for
Dan
$40.
Aykroyd behind the counter. Yeah. You have to buy like a bottle of Crystal Head to enter.
Yes. And when you get in there, they're like, it's $40. And you're like, oh my God, it's got Dan's signature on it. And they go, 60.
He actually, when you have to buy the Crystal Head, and what he appraises actually is the bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
not the
that's all it
vodka.
is.
Not just the bottle itself. It's like, this glass bottle is amazing.
You know, or maybe he does. he just drinks the bottle. Like everybody that comes in, he just gets loaded throughout the day. And that's it. That's Dan at Universal.
That would be amazing. And weird for sure. The other merch thing we should talk about before we jump into the trailer is also sort of an unknown, but something I think we're all starting to get excited about. The frozen drink maker, Icy, began promoting the trailer, which was weird because they were like, hi, we're a drink maker. We sell frozen dessert drinks. And also here's the Ghostbusters trailer on our social media account on Instagram, which kind of got people's attention. But it seems that they did more than that. Like they basically rebranded their entire social media to be around Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, which seems to have implied that there's probably some sort of tie in there, right? Between Icy and Ghostbusters, which maybe they're going to make a drink called the Death Chill that they won't be able to sell to kids because parents will be concerned.
I mean, this is weird to do. This is quite backwards,
In what way?
Like, in the respects of like, hey, we're going to promote this film. We have nothing to show you at the moment in terms of why we're promoting this film. We're going to totally rebrand ourselves. All these icicles and coldness, so cold, Frozen Empire. But they're not going to reveal anything yet. Like, you would assume that everything would kind of come in unison. Like, maybe announce you're doing an icy Ecto Cooler, icy Garaka grapefruit, whatever you're going to release, the day before. I mean, we're the day after, and there's still no announcement. I mean, it's an odd fit. It's a really odd fit. But at the same time, their comment section is getting slaughtered by fans like, hey, what's up? And all it's doing is building up hype. So maybe they got to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the last movie, the sequencing was different in that we'd find out about things about the movie we didn't want to know yet from the food marketing. And so we were like, oh, they're going to have to show us the mini puffs now because they're going to be on a cereal box. Right. Or like, oh, there's going to be an exclusive mini puff to Baskin Robbins, and there's Baskin Robbins in the movie, and what was likely a reduced impact, tie-in that didn't kind of come to fruition the way I think it was originally planned. So we got reveals of the movie by the food marketing, and it makes me wonder, like, was there this time around, they were like, you can be a brand partner, but you're not going to get to show anything until we do, because we know what it's like to be burned on this.
I mean, that's a pretty good possibility. I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, like, because I know the vast majority of people are like, it's got to be Ecto Cooler. You're going to do an Ecto Cooler Icy. Like, there can be nothing else. But when it came to, what was it, 7-Eleven, they had their beverage. And what was it? It was like a watermelon apple.
Yeah.
And like, that was weird. It was just random Ghostbuster flavor. So, while people are going nuts over it, again, it would not surprise me if Icy did Garaka grapefruit or Pukey peach or, just something out there that makes, for a lot of people, it's not ecto cooler and they're gonna be like, "Arr." But at the same time, those people that are going to "Arr," they're still going to go to their wherever sells icy and they're still going to buy it. Like,
yeah,
Ghostbuster fans are not, they're going to have to. They're going to have to try it at least. And the most common Pearce, like the most average Ghostbuster fan out there, like the common fan, I shouldn't say average, the most common fan, they're just going to see the Ghostbusters logo and they're like, "Hey, that's cool. I'm gonna drink that instead of this one that doesn't have the logo on it."
Yeah.
I'm just gonna get this. So I don't know. Ecto Cooler would be cool just for, I think, the history of Ecto Cooler, like to have it in another form as an icy. That'd be neat to actually have. But I would not be surprised if we get something different.
So there's a little bit of precedence here. When Nope came out, the movie that Jordan Peele did, Icy had a tie-in.
Mm-hmm.
And for Nope, I think that like that tie-in was essentially like cups, right? And maybe like a specific flavored drink, but it was largely, I think, cups in theaters at theaters that sold Icy. I want there to be like, and I'm like, if you're listening out there, resurrect Ecto Cooler. Like, and this is a direct message to the fan account, resurrect Ecto Cooler. I know you've been pushing hard on trying to get Icy to do the Ecto Cooler thing. And that I thought it was really funny. I've seen this. If folks haven't seen this, go check out Resurrect Ecto Cooler on Instagram and Twitter. And Resurrect Ecto Cooler had been sort of making an appeal to Slurpee, to 7-Eleven, going like, "Are you going to do an Ecto Cooler Slurpee?" And to a point where they came out and they were like, "No, we're not." And I thought it was so funny because at that point, Resurrect Ecto Cooler pivoted and like retweeted that rejection from Slurpee to Icy and was like, "You want to make a drink?" and now like there's a drink coming. But I will be honest in saying that I don't think it's going to be Ecto Cooler themed. If it is, the only way I could potentially see that happening is that Icy does have a relationship with Coca-Cola, who owns High C. And that relationship appears like to be pretty established at Burger King stores in the US because they make a thing called an Icy Coke float. But I think this is going to be more like available at theaters where Icy is available. So like AMC theaters, I think, carries Icy. I don't know who else does, but I'm not really sure this is going to be, an Ecto Cooler rollout necessarily. I think you're right. I think it could be something, maybe not Pukey Peach, because I don't know how appetizing that is. But
well, I mean,
I think it's going to be something else.
You're talking about like the tie-in with Burger King, and I mean, they had burgers that turned your stuff different colors. And I mean, that wasn't a selling point, but everybody knew about it. You know what? The fact that you talked about Burger King and the possibility of Icy there and having a Ecto Cooler Icy, I'm just too excited to talk because I'm thinking about the fact that we could maybe get a tie-in cheeseburger with a green bun. And
they've done that there, I think, right? Like that's they've done the black bun burger for sure. So
they had it was the Nightmare King, which was and I hate the fact that I know that, but I had a lot of them. But it was a green bun. It had the seeds on top, and it was I think it was the Whopper patty with cheese, a chicken patty, bacon, and then you had some fixings on there like onions and such. But yeah, I mean, I'd be down for that. I know there was a lot of rumors that they may have done a Happy Meal, like Happy Meal toys that apparently did not come to fruition for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So I'd be down for some Frozen Empire Burger King tie-ins.
Yeah,
I'm all about that life.
I don't know that they're going to happen. I think it's, again, I think it's more probable that
I'm pretty sure you just told me it's going to happen.
That's it. Unless it happens. When people don't freeze over my logo, I just make up things that are going to happen. No, I don't do that at all. I don't have any responsibilities. Nobody controls me. I don't have scheduled releases of things.
Try the new Slime Ball Burger. Available at Burger King, presented by Extraplasm Podcast. Just for the record, I don't think Burger King's making the Slime Ball Burger. I just should state that. Yeah, there's no tie-in there.
Well, they don't have licensing from Phantasm Toys.
There you go. There you go. That's good. That's good.
But I think that it'll be interesting to see what Icy does put out. Again, I think it'll be a thing at theaters, just like they kind of did Nope. You know, the Nope drink wasn't available at Burger King, right? So, but if there is a shot at it, I think that would be maybe the greatest shot you could potentially have of a Coca-Cola tie-in, right? Because you have to have Coke on board if you're going to do Ecto Cooler. It's just the bottom line of how that works. So otherwise you got to come up with some other Slimer themed drink.
I don't think they do icy in the theaters up here in Canada. So if that's the case, I'm going to cry in Canadian.
Does that sound different?
There's a lot of A's. This is horrible. And you know what's the worst thing about this? When it came to those stupid Krispy Kreme donuts, I'm sitting here thinking about all the stupid stuff that I've had shipped to me because I couldn't get it locally. You know, like paying God knows how much money for, Krispy Kreme donuts to get them shipped and all this and other things. I can't do that with an icy.
No.
The integrity immediately begins to suffer. Like, even if you can't do that. So
no, what you're going to need to have happen is like AMC, it appears, is who has the relationship with icy as I'm looking at this. Like they have an entire website about their established relationship between AMC and icy together. Like,
and they did the Ecto One Afterlife popcorn bucket.
Yeah.
They know the demand.
But like straight up, they have on the AMC Theaters movie merchandise website. I'm not even joking. You can go there and you can buy an icy machine with cherry and blue raspberry syrup. That's insane. It's out of stock now. But at one point, the AMC movie merchandise website that sold the popcorn bucket was also selling for $149.99 your own icy machine with a unique, like, exclusive syrup. And they've apparently also done this for the Trolls movie that came out in November. So, like, this is an ongoing thing that icy and AMC are doing together of let's release a drink for the movie. And they've done it so many times that apparently AMC was selling icy machines for your house. So if they put them back on sale, we just got to buy you an icy machine. We got to get you some of the syrup and then you just roll your own.
Oh man, can you imagine these poor AMC workers that are going to get hassled by Ghostbuster fans wanting syrup? Jeez. You know it's going to happen. Legions of them coming in wearing their red jackets, demanding syrup.
So, will we get Ecto Cooler? Probably not. Will we get some sort of Ghostbusters themed drink at AMC theaters? Probably, is my guess. I'm going to go with that.
Being all negative about Ecto Cooler. We're
not negative about Ecto Cooler.
Visualize it. Visualize it. Are you
I've been visualizing a 1/12 scale Ecto 1 for years, and it's not here. How long did you visualize Ghostbusters 3 for?
Yeah. I mean, some things take longer to manifest than others. All right.
In this case, Ecto Cooler is going to take the rest of my life.
Well, maybe that's the goal. Maybe you get old enough, they bring it back, and the sugar content just knocks you right out. You're done. You just, woo.
Yeah.
You go into a coma, and they're like, what happened? He goes, hey, it went the way you wanted.
They're going to have to figure out how to make that product with artificial sweeteners for all of us out there who are in our 40s and being told by our doctors to moderate our sugar intake. All right. I think we covered the merch. So let's do this. Let's go now to discussing the Ghostbusters Frozen Empire trailers that came out this week. So the real reason we're here, even though we just spent all this time talking about all these little headlines, is, of course, there's a Ghostbusters trailer. In fact, there's two of them. And I have to ask you, like, were you surprised to see that there was, like, fundamentally two just straight up different trailers this time around?
Yeah, I mean, it threw me for a loop because I'll be honest, what I usually do when it comes to any trailer releases, when it comes to movies, video games, what have you there, sometimes I get privy to getting my hands on the trailer a little early so I can like get something ready and I can get it featured on the site. Other times I'm seeing it exactly when it goes live and I've got to like hustle. You know, I gotta get that thing up ASAP. I usually have an article pre-written to some degree. This one, and then the other thing I do too usually is a reaction video. I try and do something, you know, just to get my first initial thoughts on it. So I get the article ready. have it posted with the video and everything. It's online. And then immediately I just get like, God, probably between all social media platforms, 50 messages from people being like, hey, did you know there's another trailer? Do you know there's another trailer? And I'm getting so many like links from like Sony Pictures Italy, Sony Pictures like India.
Right.
I don't know how many actual extra trailers there are. I'm watching like 7 different accounts being like, okay, is this international trailer the same as this other international? Like, I had so many people sending me things from different links. So then what I realized was, oh my God, what did I just do? I just watched the trailers. So that kind of disqualified me of doing my traditional kind of reaction thing.
Right.
Because I had to then cover both. But yeah, I mean, getting 2 totally separate trailers, and not only separate trailers, like different trailers, but having them being just that different, like so different. One focusing more on story, one seemingly more action based. Yeah. I mean, this is something that to me, like if you were like, hey, new Ghostbusters trailer in February, I would have gotten really excited for. And now you just gave me that February reveal in January, and totally unexpected.
I was really unexpected for me. I've talked about this, and for those who may have heard this, if you've heard it on Strange Glow Video, I was on their show talking about this on the night that the trailer came out. And so I don't mean to repeat myself, but not everybody who listens to Extraplasm listens to that. So I'll kind of repeat this. But I made this stupid mistake that I thought that the trailer was dropping at 9:00 in the morning PST, meaning noon Eastern, because that's when all the other ones have dropped, right? They were all like, oh, it'll drop at 9 my time, but noon Eastern. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll get up in the morning and like check out what's going on, and then I'll be awake to watch the trailer with everybody. So I woke up at like 8:45, had my alarm set, figured I'd like have my morning breakfast and coffee and watch the trailer. And I woke up to an inbox full of messages that were like, there's 2 trailers. I'm like, what? Well, how do you know this? How would you even know this is happening yet? And then like I went to another group and it was like, oh my God, the trailer. And I was like, did I oversleep? Like, did I set my alarm wrong? Like, and that's when I realized that it had come out 3 hours earlier and I was just completely late to school. I was just like, okay, cool. So when I've discovered there was 2 trailers, I was like, okay, well now I'm behind the 8 ball on both. But yeah, out of the 2, did you prefer one over the other?
I think I like the international more so. I think I'd have to go with that. But again, to me, they're quite a bit different in the respects. I do feel like one kind of gives you that story, the other kind of gives you the action. Right. Not that both aren't action packed, especially for a Ghostbusters movie. But yeah, I think maybe the international. But maybe at the same time, the international just strikes a chord with me just because it was a surprise. Like it feels like a gift. You know, it feels like I wasn't supposed to get this. But yeah, I'm still blown away by both overall, and really has made me think a lot more. Not that I was thinking negative, but a lot more positive about the film. I kind of said it in my breakdown, or not my breakdown, but my eventual thoughts video that's up on the Ghostbusters News YouTube channel. I've had a little bit of concern when it comes to the juggling of so many characters, the originals, the Afterlife, the new guys. From what I've seen, I like how they're kind of stationed. Like I can't really see, Patton, James, and Kumail having that same size role. I mean, maybe James, possibly, but at least from what I've seen, like in the trailer and everything, I don't think they'll eat as much screen time up as I thought they would.
Yeah.
And at the same time, too, I feel like there's a really nice sense of that original Ghostbusters style mixed with something new, mixed with like the chaos and the craziness of the real Ghostbusters, that it just has this really nice kind of like vibe and feel to it that I really like. And I said it actually on this podcast many episodes ago that I kind of wish Ghostbusters would evolve. And I feel like that's exactly what we're getting with this movie. I feel like we're getting almost to that weird multiverse sense. I mean, it's weird because Ghostbusters isn't really a multiverse, but with everything that's on the go, and if this movie does well, I really feel the franchise can expand and just go into so many different like new territories, new areas, new locations, tell so many new stories. I'm pretty pumped after seeing this thing. Both of them.
I'm excited about the movie. I agree with you that I was kind of like and I've said this in different places over the last couple weeks, that like this is the biggest Ghostbusters movie we've seen with the biggest cast. So how do you make sure that you give them all their due? You know, you don't want to sort of like rush through these new characters, and you also don't want to kind of leave the story of folks on the floor. Like, to be real, Afterlife gave us how much time with our OG Ghostbusters? Like 10 minutes at most. And then we were left with questions like, how did they get there? Like, you know, like, did they fly? How did they all show up there and nobody noticed their arrival? Like, and so, and I'm not trying to be overly nitpicky, you know, but I've had that concern a little bit about, will there be breathing space for all these characters? And I might have been a little cynical about that at points. And I think that coming out of the trailer, like, my view at this point is maybe that this movie is big in terms of its Ghostbusters cast, but given how much of it was shot, you know, in a soundstage and fabricated environments rather than being in the actual experience of New York, like maybe you just have a smaller cast because you have way fewer background actors. You know, like we think about the first Ghostbusters movie and we're like, hey, it's the Hare Krishna guy. Hey, check it out. That's awesome. Hey, it's the I like that shirt friend guy. Like there's all these different like sort of background character actors. And it makes me wonder if there's fewer of those people. And instead we have people like Patton, people like Kumail, who are going to serve a function in the narrative, but are not necessarily going to be like, you know, this plethora of people who are all extras and background people. There will have to be, because there'll be people running from ghosts and whatnot, you know, but it just makes me wonder how that's going to play out a little bit, you know? I definitely feel like we're going to see, not really James, because of, I mean, you see things in the trailer with him, you know, grabbing the golden orb and stuff like that. Yeah.
But I could definitely see like Patton being kind of like that James Bond Q type, where here he is, you know, like this is him. They'll set up the character in 1 minute. He'll be doing something. He'll say something. And this, okay, I get this character. I understand this character. I know, and this is all I need to know. And then you see him a couple more times in the movie, and that's it. I think he's going to be like an academic researcher. Yeah. Like we know he has a doctorate because his title is Dr. Hubert Wartsky, right? And what we've seen him in now several things, whether it was the photos from Empire or these most recent trailers, like he is in the first trailer too. Like he was there in what they call the teaser trailer. It was just as long as these, so it may as well just be trailer 1. You know, he's there explaining that part of that explanation of the death chill is him talking with Ray. Ray is providing the narrative, but then he's like, that's awesome, right? Like, and so I think that his role is going to be like a guy who he's not like guy in the van, you know, like he's not going to be like a person who's necessarily there for the bust, but he's there doing like the back end research as an academic researcher who looks at like different folklore and whatnot, and potentially provides an expert opinion on those things. Like would make a lot of sense to me, you know? And then Kumail, like my question for him is like, what's his motivation? Like I hadn't thought about this, but when I was on Strange Glow last night, I have been thinking about Kumail simply as being like a guy who either inherits, like he's a collector of sneakers, it appears. He looks like a sneakerhead based off of these little segments in the trailer. So there's also this second collection where he's living, which is all these gold objects, one of which is this orb. I've like, if you had to give me one emotion I had about the trailer, it was validated because of the number of things I was right about. And I was like, look, I've said these things. And in this case, like he walks into Ray's occult and is like, are you the guy who's weird and buys strange objects or whatever it is that he says? And so it pretty sets up like he's the one bringing this object to the Ghostbusters and setting it up. And so I've thought about it as like, he's just a flipping guy. He's like gotten a collection from somebody, whether he inherited it from somebody else, right? Like he lived in an apartment with an old person collecting his sneakers and they passed on. And so now he's like, I can sell off all these objects because eventually they're going to show up there. We know they're going to be in that room full of all those objects in the trailer. So at some point somebody's got to be like, let's go to this guy's house or whatever. So I originally thought it was benign. I was like, maybe he's just, it's like, I'm going to make money. I'm going to flip this stuff. But last night was on Strange Glow. It came up that like, what if he's kind of like Janosch? Yeah. So what if he's been kind of like, this entity has influenced and wants the orb to go where it needs to go, you know? And it kind of was like, oh, that adds an element to this story that I hadn't really thought of, you know, that like the entity could actually be having influences to get itself where it wants to go. And I don't know, we'll see. I still kind of think it's probably going to be more like he's a collector who's like, oh, there's a place that I can pawn this at that'll buy these objects for me.
But
it's a possibility. Like I remember back in the springtime, going to the summer when they were filming Ghostbusters over in the UK, and like Dan was doing the media and interview appearances, and he really talked about possessed objects. Like he was really talking about how our movie kind of dives into that, and they kind of touch on that in the film with the golden orb and such. But you saying that right now, I mean, if I'm just thinking of like, okay, if Kumail inherited it, who's to say that the person who owned it previously didn't die because of something related to the orb? You know, it's just, I mean, again, this is just spitballing ideas and everything, but I'm definitely interested to see how he got a hold of it, why he has it, and if there is any of that kind of like Janos Poha kind of vibe where there's an ulterior motive somewhere, or, you know, I guess an invisible hand is at play.
Right. Yeah. And or is it just, by random happenstance of the Ghostbusters start taking in possessed objects because that's happening via Ray's Occult and happening via podcast. It just happens via coincidence. And it's going to be interesting to see like what the actual motive is that kind of drives this narrative together. I think I kind of agree with you also that like the international trailer was the one I preferred. I feel like the domestic trailer talks to us well. If that makes sense. Like I think it talks to us as a fandom, and it's like, look, Walter Peck. But like if I showed that trailer to my mom, she would have no idea that that was Walter Peck. Like she would have no throwback to it.
Who is this guy?
Yeah. And I was thinking about this with like my family. They heard me talk about Afterlife for so long, right? Because it was like we were waiting for it, and I was just constantly all the time like, yeah, I'm really waiting for this movie to come out. I'm really excited about it. And I wouldn't shut up about it. So
Jim, do you want eggs? Yeah, Afterlife. I tell you.
It's worse than that. I didn't see my family for years because of the pandemic, and I lived 3,000 miles away from them. And every time I was on the phone, I was like, what's going on? I'm still waiting for my movie. So like they had heard me talk about that for so long, and they didn't run to the theater to go see it. Right. But like they are people who eventually watched that movie on cable and then went like, or, you know, on streaming, whatever. And then said, oh, hey, I watched that Ghostbusters movie you had been talking about. It was actually really good. Like, which was kind of like, it repeatedly was, I was almost surprised that movie was something that I enjoyed and held up. But they were not people for whom like Ghostbusters, the canon of it matters. Like at best it might to my dad, because my dad and I would watch Ghostbusters together in a video store when I was a kid, when he was working nights. You know, but like for my mom, it's not. For my sister or her husband, it's not. And I felt like the domestic trailer was one that if I showed it to them, they wouldn't necessarily know what this movie was about, or like why that guy at the beginning matters or anything. Whereas the second trailer, the international trailer, is one that I showed it to my partner. She's not a ghost head, right? Like she doesn't really know who Walter Peck is. And I showed her both trailers and I said, tell me what you think of these two. And she went, well, that one tells the story of what I would go to a movie for way better. Like that's, but this one, I'm not like, is that the guy from the first movie? And I was like, yes. Oh, okay. Right. So I think like, to me, I like that international trailer better because I want the trailer to do the job, not of making me happy that I got to see what's going to be in a movie, but of getting people to go to it who necessarily maybe weren't going to go to it to begin with. Cause we're all going to go. Right, like we're all going to see this movie, you know. Yeah, I
totally agree. One thing that was a standout, and again, I mentioned this in some of the coverage I did, was I feel like with Ghostbusters, there's a handful of characters that get that nice pop. They get that really nice response from, you know, the casual fan, the person who may not necessarily even like be crazy about Ghostbusters, but they may go see it. You know, guys like Bill Murray and such like that, sure. But one that I was really elated to see get her spotlight was Annie Potts, Janine Melnitz. And that was the overarching conversation I had with people that were more common fans, you know, friends around the area, family members, was after they watched it, they said, oh, hey, it's cool to see the receptionist, or hey, it's cool to see Mima, or hey, it's cool to see Annie Potts. Hardly none of them said Janine, but they were excited to see that for her to finally get her, you know, in the flight suit, the proton pack. And I hope, I mean, I know Sony knows the kind of the weapon they have there with Annie Potts and the crowd that she can bring in, because people freaking love, I mean, people that know Ghostbusters love Janine. People that know Annie Potts, they love Annie Potts. Right. I mean, she's great. And yeah, that was one thing that I'm not really surprised over it, but I'm just really happy that they gave her a moment in that trailer, especially with the line delivery from Bill Murray. I think that really sold it for, I mean, you don't have to sell it to me, but I think that moment probably sold it for quite a few people.
I love that moment because I want to hold it in contrast to like the 1984 moment where he's like, we're paying for this stuff.
Yeah.
He's just like, it's like, you know, I'm sure that you could find an equally paying job in the food service industry. Like, he's like such a dick to her in the first movie in those moments. And that's what leads her to answer the phone with Ghostbusters. What do you want? Right. It's because he's been so shitty. And so it's a sort of see in the trailer, this sort of evolution of relationship, you know, that like, it's not just like, hey, he's a dick to Janine was kind of important to me. But I think you're right about this. Like, I think there's a lot of people who identify, even if they're not like, she's Janine Melnitz, they know she's Janine. She's just as much of a character from the real Ghostbusters. For the folks who are like about our age, who are in like their 40s or about to reach their 40s, the real Ghostbusters is really what made Ghostbusters important for them. And it's something I've really learned, I feel like, over the last year of the podcast of talking to so many people, is that for me, the first Ghostbusters movie is the thing I remember first because I was 4, and it's like the first full movie experience I can remember going to as a child. Like, it's why it's such a big deal for me. But without question, the thing I then fell in love with and owned all the toys for and watched every, you know, Saturday was the real Ghostbusters. It wasn't that movie. And there's plenty of people who were not even alive when the 84 movie came out, who were like 2 years old. And so their on board to Ghostbusters is the cartoon. Right? It is real Ghostbusters. Yeah. So they have been waiting to see Janine put on a flight suit, even if they're not like hardcore Ghostbusters fans. They've just seen her do it in a cartoon. Like, they watched Ghostbusters as they were kids. They've now seen like, oh, that's cool. They're doing what they did in the cartoon, like when I was a kid, and that resonates for them, right? Because even though they're not current hardcore Ghostbusters people, they are people who had a Janine action figure or who watched that show. And they like saw her in the pink flight suit and went, well, when are they going to ever do that in the movie? Right. So I think you're right. I hope that they really leverage the fact that she's there. And it's crazy to me that that's a decision that was made on the set.
Yeah. Like, what else would she have done? Like, I mean, I guess she could just be at the firehouse and, you know, they could be like, hey, you know, here's this proton one-handed pistol thing. You're going to wear your little vest in your dress and you're just going to slap this on your arm. Or maybe she was never supposed to. Maybe she was just going to be in the background and that was it. But it's awesome that she's going to get, you know, this kind of feature. It's great to see the character kind of evolve a bit because especially when you think about like, she is a part of the Ghostbusters.
Yes.
But she is the reception at the same time. For it to be 40 years later, be like, you know what? Sure, I'm working back here again. You know, I know there's like the whole relationship and everything they're probably going to dive into with her and Egon through the years and Winston. So there's always that constant connection of her being with them. So I get that. But man, for her to stay with that employer all those years, I hope they're paying her well, and I hope she's got benefits.
I thought this was kind of amusing. You touched on something that happened in social media this week that is kind of, you know, it's not a huge deal, but like friend of the podcast, Chris Stewart from the Cross Rip had made this sort of snarky tweet answering back fans. He kind of like put a perspective in quotation marks and began to answer it back. And the perspective was the people who were criticizing the trailer and going like, this movie makes no sense. This was just a job for Winston and Janine. Like, that makes no sense that they're in this movie. And you're like, yeah, except that she also was like somebody who was helping to pay the bills of a guy living in Oklahoma when she presumably was not in Oklahoma. She was in New York. And I don't really think that Egon was paying her, given that she was talking about how there was a considerable amount of debt to inherit and that she was struggling to help him keep the lights on. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's like, there's clearly a relationship here for these people, right? It's not just like, oh, she worked for them and then she stayed on the payroll for 40 years necessarily, as much as they have had serious, like, almost world-ending traumatic events they shared together and that have like shaped and colored their relationships over time. And we're going to get to sort of see what that grew out, what that grew into.
For a movie about ghosts and ghost busting, seriously, that could be one of the most realistic parts of the film.
Yeah.
Because I've done it. I'm sure tons of listeners have done it. You're at a job you may not like, and you're like, you know what? Later this year or this week or next month, I'm gonna put my resume out there somewhere else. I'm gonna leave. And a year goes by.
Yeah.
And then another year goes by.
Yep.
And then wouldn't you know it, you've made friends. And maybe you've got friends that even from like previous employers you still talk to. Maybe they're your best friend. Who knows? You still keep in touch with those people. And if those people hit it big like Winston, why not be like, hey, you know what? Come aboard.
Yeah.
We'll hire you.
Yeah.
We'll bring you back. And you've got, you do feel, you kind of mentioned it when it came to like the world events and like these horrible moments and everything. And, Vigo and Gozer and all this, you have that bond, you have that attachment with one another.
Yeah.
And to me, that is very, very realistic. Again,
it's like teams of firefighters, right? Or cops who've like all endured like these shared events that were difficult and challenging and tested their mettle, and so I'm eager to see this. Like I really want to know what the script was before they decided to put her in the flight suit. I'm not gonna lie. Like I want to know what did they go into London like about to shoot that they changed their minds on the set and were like, we're gonna make this happen. Was it plot points or was it just costuming? Who knows?
Well, one thing that we haven't really talked about, and I meant to kind of mention it when I was talking about like the ensemble, like the massive cast. Like there's a lot of people in this thing. But I like the idea. One thing that I really loved about the trailer is it really kind of shows how, aside from likely the big battle, at the end where they kind of go against Karaka, it's the fact that it seems like they're going to branch off. You're going to have this group of Ghostbusters, this group and this group, like they're all going to do their own little thing.
Mm-hmm.
And for at least a partition of the movie there. So I could definitely see it where maybe she was with another group. She maybe didn't stay at the firehouse.
Right.
She went out there with, Patton and or not Patton, but Dr. What's his name? What
Dr. Hubert Wirtz.
Hubert. Yeah, because we've seen the clip of like Hubert and Danny at the library, right? So who knows? Maybe she was going with them. Maybe she was going elsewhere. Maybe she was here's the clip of going into Kumail's like trophy room. It's not really a clip, but a photo from the Empire magazine. Maybe she was kind of like the mother hen in that scene, and she kind of like brought everybody with her. I don't know. I maybe it was something that it was like story driven that kind of got changed around a bit, and it wasn't just wardrobe.
Right. But I'm totally stoked by it. I'm excited, and I've joked about this previously that like this new weapon she's gonna have, this handheld, what looks to be like a handheld neutrino blaster.
Everybody's gonna have to have one.
Yeah. Like that's gonna be a HasLab.
Well, just from a prop standpoint of like the fact that I can now dress up like a Ghostbuster and not break my freaking back.
Yeah.
And not the fact that the HasLab stuff and everything, it's made it a lot more bearable. It's made it a lot more nice, more nice than running around with like a 40-pound pack on your back. But the fact that I can just strap something to my arm and run around and be like, I'm a Ghostbuster. Yeah, I'm excited for that. And I'm sure every freaking franchise is going to have them.
Yeah.
Men, women, everybody is going to be wearing those.
Yeah, I think that'll be a thing we see people starting to build. Actually, I've seen people beginning to build those already based off the trailer. I've seen a few posts on social media of folks who have started to mock those up and figure out what is involved in making them. I will say I'm slightly disappointed. Not really though. And my slight disappointment is that I've been talking over the last couple episodes about how I hoped it was just a really big, giant boxing glove, like a big ghost glove that she could just punch ghosts with, and it would have been awesome. But maybe it'll have that as a secondary function. That would be great. I think I called it like the boson glove or something. It was just like you just had the boson punch. You tell me you wouldn't pay to see that. See Annie Potts just like everybody else is shooting wands and she's just running up this small little older woman underneath big scary ghosts and just punching them in the nuts.
Give me old Mike Tyson.
Yeah, it's like this. It's more like the little Mac. she does the uppercut.
Oh.
You know, you got to hit the start button and then she, bam. That's
She's
how
not
it
like
works.
she's not like lunging on Garaka, like trying to like bite its horn off.
No.
Okay.
that's the Mike Tyson.
That's what
different.
I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I now want Janine to be trained by Doc Lewis from Mike
Lewis.
Tyson's Punch Out. It's just a little sprite of her jogging in a flight suit with a glove on, and he's riding a bike. But no, I really do think it's going to be cool to see Janine in ghostbusting, you know, mode. Like the only time we ever got to see that in the real Ghostbusters was kind of like when she wished for it with a genie. It's like where that happened.
Yeah, like there was a few other times where she like kind of like tried to save the day, or you know, there was like other happenstance that kind of took place or what have you. But it was definitely few and far in between. And I'm kind of surprised though. Like I said, the response has been really good to it, at least from what I've seen. But I'm kind of surprised that like a lot of the news sites out there, like the entertainment news sites, aren't really kind of jumping on that. I feel like that's a pretty good, pretty good headline.
Honestly, it's the thing I thought I would have opened the domestic trailer with over what it opens with. And we'll talk about this for a couple minutes. Like I'm going to say some stuff here about the Walter Peck thing. And I mentioned this on Strange Glow when I was on, and I feel like I might have come across as negatively, and I don't mean to, because I'm not like unhappy to see Walter Peck in a movie, right? That's great.
I love seeing Walter Peck in a movie.
I just thought it was an odd choice to open the trailer like with him, because that trailer then talks to people who know who Walter Peck is. Like otherwise it's just like, here's this guy who's saying things, and then Paul Rudd is like overruled. and Finn Wolfhard is like sustained. And you're like, okay, cool. So who is this guy if you don't know who Peck is? What's your take on who he is in the movie? Who do you think? What do you think he does?
I would think mayor.
Like this is the consensus everybody seems to have, is that he's the mayor, and one large part because of the office he's in, but also because he's wearing a vest that apparently that's a throwback to Mayor Lenny wearing vests.
And the mayor is a key part of like all Ghostbusters movies. Like, I mean, Afterlife, no, but I mean, you had like the sheriff in town for that.
Yeah.
So you had kind of like that local, police enforcement. But to me, I don't know if you can return to New York City. If you're going to return to New York City and you're going to have the mayor, obviously you can't have Mayor Lenny.
Right.
Poor guy passed away. And also, I mean, he wouldn't be mayor now. It would be too crazy.
No, he was the lawyer to the Sopranos, so he can't be mayor now. He's
no.
committed too many crimes.
The bada bing. But I feel like that's one of the better choices. If you're going to have a mayor and you're bringing back William Atherton, that just seems almost perfect. Especially if you're going to have it where he still has that axe to grind against the Ghostbusters, despite the fact that he did see the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, despite the fact that he was covered in marshmallow goo, all this such, he doesn't believe it. He still thinks they're, a crock. But I do agree. I didn't really think of it at the time, but I do definitely agree now that you're kind of saying it here that it's definitely odd for the more casual fan.
Yeah.
Just coming into that. I kind of feel like if he is mayor, it would have been nice to actually have maybe a quick shot of his desk as he's talking with, Mayor Peck or what have you. Just kind of like, just seeing like a little name tag or something just to kind of bring in that more casual audience.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I'm not like, I will say this. I don't feel like I get mayor's office vibes in that scene the way I did in Mayor Lenny's office. Like that's a room that is otherwise empty except for the Ghostbusters and one police officer who's standing in the back. And so I'm kind of like, did he escort them there? Like, what's the situation there? Whereas it felt like Mayor Lenny's office was almost like a little more opulent and had more people coming and going and sort of around him. Maybe it was because they were in the middle of crisis. That's fine. A little. This is where I don't want to sound negative, but I might. One of the things that's really important to me in a Ghostbusters movie is that it's grounded in something. Like that it's grounded in a sense. Like ghostbusting is not, right? Like we can accept that. The ghostbusting is, it's the fantasy part of things. And so the rest of what works in the 84 movie is that it feels very grounded. And I've always said that like what makes it feel grounded is the sense of New York that you have. And it's kind of like whether it's the combination of unpermitted shoots and permitted shoots composited with LA soundstage stuff that makes you feel like you are grounded in a real universe. And in contrast to that, this is not to do the slagging on Ghostbusters 2016, because we're not doing that. But one of the things that I find difficult about being grounded in that universe is how that universe talks about the academy and academia, right? It's sort of like, is this incredibly unrealistic version of what tenure is and how any of that would work. Like, to be real, for those of you out there listening, tenure review is like a process that goes on for like 4 years when you get a job at an academic institution. It's designed to be something that coaches you into being a good professor in the context you're in. It's not like a thing where people go, oh, we can fire you tomorrow because you study something we don't think is important. And now you no longer have tenure and it just happens in the middle of a semester. It's not a thing. And even like the first Ghostbusters kind of does this a little because it's just like, you're being moved off campus. And you're like, okay, but they would have known that. Like, no one would have shown up and been like, we've canceled all funding for your department in the middle of the semester while you were doing studies with students. Like, it's not how things work. But I've always let that go with the 84 movie because it's kind of not really essential to the plot. And the 2016 movie, in contrast, especially the extended cut, needs to bring it back up over and over again. Sort of needs to call back to the book. It needs to like sort of call back to the dean, etc. I'm worried, in a sense, that I want there to be a logical explanation for why an environmental regulatory investigator working for the federal government in 1984 pivoted to becoming a politician who's capable of winning the New York City mayoral election. Like, I'm going to need that. If I don't have it, that will be a big unanswered question for me that kind of pokes a little bit of a hole in the grounding of the movie. I know for some people they're going to go, dude, you are nitpicking so hard. But the New York part matters to me, right? And you can't sort of hand wave who's the mayor of New York City for me. You just can't. Or it takes away that grounding. So maybe, I don't know. You might think I'm being too nitpicky too. You can say so.
I mean, it's definitely weird, especially when you think there's a 40-year gap between the two.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking maybe it's a weird rags to riches story where after the events of the first Ghostbusters, the reason we didn't see him in Ghostbusters 2 or anything like that is he was done. You know, Mayor Lenny pulled some strings and something happened and he's been trying to work his way back up all these years and he's finally back up there and he's not going to be taken down by those Ghostbusters again. I don't know. I don't know what the story is going to be or anything. I just, like you, I hope there is some grounding there because that's one thing that especially the first Ghostbusters does so well, is that the fact that something like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, you can believe it, is because up until that point, everything is just kind of gradually built up and up where it started in reality. And now I can accept this. Now I can accept that. And now I can accept, I can accept Slimer. Sure. So I get it. Me not, being, you're making me think about it, I will say.
I don't mean to, sorry.
It was something before this that where I would question. However, I do feel like on his standpoint, he's either, obviously he's still harboring ill feelings towards the Ghostbusters, which I would assume means that after the events of Ghostbusters, the first film, something happened. Something continued to happen with him. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to go back to my EPA job. I think there was some bad ramifications in terms of the events of that film, the destruction of the apartment building, Lenny backing and Lenny getting back in, obviously, as mayor, because he was in that way in Ghostbusters 2. I just feel like there's definitely a lot of narrative, a lot of story there, and a lot of hatred that has been built up with Walter Peck.
I'm also going to say that I'm hopeful that it's a total misdirect. The way that scene is cut could have totally different dialogue.
Oh, yeah.
He could be saying like, I've been waiting 40 years for this. And the next thing he could be saying is, I was wrong. Like, what people thought was that people say this, but there was no actual evidence of anyone doing any. And then he could turn around and go, but I was wrong. What do you need? Like I would be totally fine with that because I would rather see him come into the role or him come into the narrative and illustrate a sense of growth that we see from other characters rather than, oh, it's round 2, right? Like for Walter Peck and the Ghostbusters 40 years later. But we'll see. Like I'm going to go see the movie either way and I'm probably going to enjoy it either way. but I'm kind of hopeful in a weird way that like that's a misdirect for us. Like we're supposed to think of that as being like, oh my God, Peck is back. But in the end, he's going to turn around and go, I've actually developed a relationship with billionaire Winston Zeddemore who helped me to get elected. Like would be a really logical explanation for why that scene isn't him standing there going, I'm going to shut you down like I tried to before. Right. And he's going to, if he is a guy who went from federal investigator to winning a mayoral campaign that would require millions of dollars in capital funding, maybe Winston did it. That would be kind of crazy.
It's a possibility. I just want to see Walter Peck now, wear a proton pack. That's where I'm at. That is actually kind of funny because you're bringing that up because I know in the Empire magazine, I was about to say the Frozen Empire magazine, which I guess it kind of is, the March feature there is the talk with Jason Reitman, and he's kind of discussing the end of the film, all the Ghostbusters coming together. And you see that in the trailer. But he talks about Ghostbusters old and new joining together, plus a few, maybe a few surprises, which makes me wonder, what are those surprises? I mean, are you going to give Slimer a proton pack? Are you going to give Walter Peck a proton pack? There's also, if you did watch the breakdown video I did on the channel, there is the one scene, I believe it's from the domestic, the North American trailer, where you see, it appears like somebody's like jumping out a shot on the left-hand side for a quick second.
Yeah.
And what they're wearing is entirely different. Like it's almost like I don't want to say like medieval or like a night gear or something, but it doesn't seem to fit with the era. Maybe it's just a shot. Maybe I'm looking at something that's not really there, but there's something there. There's another element to that big Ghostbuster battle at the end of the film. I have a feeling.
Well, it makes you wonder, given that like we've seen now in stills, or rather in the first trailer, and that's now showed up in longer detail in the second trailers, this scene of the firefighters inside the firehouse in what appears to be like the 19th century. Like part of me wondered but the potential surprise could be that there's some sort of rift in time or something where like those people, those like good ghosts, maybe like people who were from that time are able to help out. Who knows? Like, I mean, I've also joked that I'm kind of hopeful that Louis Tully will just show up in the last like 90 seconds of the movie and just be like, I'm here with you guys. And then everybody thinks he saved the day. That would really make my day. But I mean, it would be silly and stupid, but it would be also kind of awesome. But yeah, I don't mean to sound negative if I do. Like I'm totally excited about seeing this movie and seeing where it's going to go. I just want to make sure that we get a movie that, is fulfilling. Like I don't want Peck to be there for the sake of being there. If that makes sense. And I think with Jason and Gil, they don't tend to put characters into things and just arbitrarily inject things in there just for the sake of them being there. There's usually a reason. I mean, Orange thing notwithstanding, there was a lot of Easter eggs in the first movie, tech wise, but not character wise. Everybody who's there has a role. No. So
everybody, I mean, like all I can think of is like how profound Ivo Shandor's role was in Afterlife. He just showed up, got torn in two.
Yes.
Just didn't show up for the sake of showing up, not to get him a job or a role in that film.
Oh, that is fair. That is a role that kind of is there to be there, right? Like it doesn't have to be, but yeah. The other thing I really was stoked about in this trailer was seeing this lab. Like this, and really the international trailer does a way better job of showing you this research lab that the movie's going to kind of center around. And I thought this was kind of funny. There's that moment where they're like, you just let all these ghosts run around in here? And Winston's like, we spent 40 years trapping them and now we get to research them. And I'm like, this is totally a Ghostbusters move. This is unlicensed nuclear accelerators on backpacks.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we have a lab. What's the difference? Just let them run around here. It's all fine. It'll be good. Right? And so it's totally the prime moment for some then big bad to show up and be like, I can command everything you put in this room.
Oh, yeah. I do love the fact, though, that the ghosts that we're seeing that's like running around in here are things like the mini puffs. They're things like Pukey. Like they don't have a cell with like the freaking Scolari brothers in it, like something that was like horrifying. I mean, there may be in the actual film, but at least from what we're being shown here, we've got the adorable, cute, cuddly little, spectral menaces.
Mm-hmm. I want to know where they are. I have suggested that where they are is not new construction, right? Like it is another, like the firehouse, old tiled place with like archways and things. So I'm like, are you like in a disused portion of the Central Park Zoo? Like, did you move into an old aquarium? Like, what is this? What appears to be underground, right? Like it's kind of constructed in a way that gives it an underground vibe with all these tiles and bricks and archways and buttresses, sort of architecturally, that wouldn't make sense if there wasn't stuff stacked up on top of it. Right. So to me, I'm like, is this like an underground area, like at a defunct zoo or an aquarium? Like, what did they get? Because it's weird to consider it, but like if you're Winston and you have billions of dollars, you want to build a research lab, you could just be like, hey, we're building a new facility, right? Like from the ground up, we're putting in fiber optic lines everywhere we're going. And instead what we're looking at is a room that is got a bunch of old and very similar old fashioned ceramic tiles. And then the technology around the room is like IBM PCs with cathode ray tubes and floppy drives, right? So where are they? I really like this research lab is cool, but I'm also like, what is this facility and where has all this equipment come from?
Yeah, it's also cool too to see like if it is going to be a fictitious New York landmark. I'm kind of curious if this is going to add another must-stop destination when it comes to fans' New York, trips. Like, hey, you go through this passageway, and this is where our research facility is. I just really love the fact that it seems like that, being that it has a like older vibe, older style to it. It almost kind of seems like from the get-go, it's going to have this like iconic vibe and feel that's going to match up well to the Ghostbusters Firehouse.
Yes.
And I'm kind of curious too, that if it is like at least the exterior has some type of like real world attachment to New York City, if we're going to see like a new must-stop spot on fans' NYC trips, like everybody's going to visit there. Again, we're going to have like a legion of fans in red jackets in the middle of the summer. Just running up and being like, hey, this is where the R&D facility is. Well,
everybody's
really
heading over to the
but
Coney Island Aquarium, right? To be like,
yes.
I mean, I don't think it was, I think it was all on a soundstage. I don't think any of it, was practical in terms of going out to a location. But that's what I'm wondering and what I'm getting at, right? Is like, is this like, hey, they went and bought like a disused, zoo wing? Did they go to the Bronx Zoo and be like, we want to get a wing of your old underground reptile house and turn it into something else? Like, what is it? Because it's clearly not new construction. It's something that they're going to have reappropriated. And I think that's kind of interesting. Like that there's another like almost municipal building that they have managed to find and potentially move into and work within. So, and it could be something like underground lab at say Columbia, but I don't think so. It doesn't have that vibe.
Also the reasoning of the lab and the location, like you were saying, I mean, like Winston, he's got the money. He can just set up shop almost anywhere he wants. So to actually be like, okay, we need this place right here. I'm curious if maybe depending on the location, maybe it's close to some type of like power supply that they need for the large scale, I guess, containment unit from what is shown in the trailer there. Or
at least the bank of containment units that are on the walls. Because there's like a whole bunch of rectangular objects on the back. And it's only in the international trailer. You don't see that in the domestic trailer, I don't think. Like that shot that gives you this back wall. And then you see like 4 or 5 red objects with red and green lights on in the background that are painted the exact same color as the containment unit. To me, I looked at that and I was like, this is like an array of containment devices that are all like kind of wired together in some capacity, almost like holding cells, I've kind of suggested maybe that's where they divided up the 198 pieces of Gozer that were in the 198 traps in Egon's Field, because you probably can't put them all together in one place. That likely leads to a pretty bad manifestation for you. You probably can't put your terror dogs in the same place as you put your deity that summons the terror dogs. That would be bad. So I really want to know more about this facility. And like strangely enough, like if they were gonna make a play set from this movie, I don't know that I'd want it to be the firehouse. Like I think I'm like, give me this research lab. Don't give me Ken or Egon's lab. Give me this lab. Like show me what this, like give me, you know, a diorama, some sort of thing that you can either take the figures that are from the Fright Features line, or that you can take from Plasma series and put them into this sort of research lab context. Cause it seems like it's going to be pretty damn important in terms of the film.
Yeah. And again, I mean, it seems like this is where, when you start branching the teams off, like this is where Lucky, she's going to spend quite a bit of the time in the movie. Yeah. This is where James Acaster's character there, he's going to spend quite a bit of time in the film. Again, not too much has been shown, but I'm enticed. I'm looking forward to seeing more of it.
So here's my big question I'll ask you that I've got my own thoughts on. Does the firehouse make it out of this movie?
I think it has to. I hope so. I feel like if you go through all this and you tear apart the firehouse, like I can't see the film feeling resolved at the end if they're not in the firehouse, especially with the line like Paul Rudd delivers about like defending the firehouse, like defending this. To me, the ending of this movie has to come with the Ghostbusters in the firehouse. You know, alarm kind of goes off, and again, back in business. You know, like kind of how it begins. Like they've got the threat down, and maybe you tease that next big threat. You tease what could be coming afterwards. But I feel like to get a proper resolve, you've got to do it where the firehouse is at least either being worked on or back in order. Mm-hmm. But then again, I do get that appeal of, you know, possibly having it where, you know, you got narration from Winston and he's talking about everything that's changed, and it skips 6 months ahead. And now they're in a bigger facility, and, you know, Ghostbusters is going global, or Ghostbusters is, you know, branching out. Yeah, I mean, I'm one of the first guys that I've even said on this podcast that I can't wait for them to expand. And my first initial concept of like, hey, let's end it back in the firehouse, that kind of keeps in the firehouse. Right. You end it with them, again, opening up and having a larger scale facility, having a new firehouse elsewhere, what have you. That would be huge. I'd feel bad for the guys at the actual Hook and Ladder 8 in New York City.
If it wasn't the firehouse anymore.
yeah. I love those guys there. And I know like they'll still draw a crowd regardless. But yeah, it would be kind of painful.
It'll
to see
always
that,
be the Ghostbusters firehouse, even if it isn't. Like that's like for us, it will always be that, right?
It will be. It will be. But I feel like the Ghostbusters, at least right now, this tandem, like if you've got the New York-based Ghostbusters, the firehouse is as much of a character as the Ecto-1, as much of a character as like the lead guys.
The surprise at the end of the movie is going to be that they cover the firehouse in slime, and it picks itself above its foundation, turns into a giant like stone warrior, and just uses the big boson punch.
Hey, there you go. There you go. Now I hope it kind of, I hope it kind of survives, or, you know, they're doing the build up at the end there. But again, you can have that, and at the same time, you can still kind of set up that next sequel. You can still do the whole global idea. You know, all it is a quick narration, and hey, this is what we're doing 3 months later, 6 months later, 1 year later. Do that tease for the next film. Hopefully this movie is a success and it continues. I have no idea what the freaking budget is on this thing, because good Lord, looking at the trailer, comparing it to Afterlife,
the cast salary alone.
Yeah. Hopefully this movie makes bank. Again, no idea what the actual, how much this thing costs, but
right.
Hopefully it does well at the box office.
I will throw this out there regarding the firehouse and the end of, you know, what happens with this movie. I think it's entirely possible that we could see the firehouse destroyed in this movie. Mm-hmm. Like, I talked a bit about this yesterday, and I've thought about it some more since. Why did they keep the firehouse after the first movie? Like, what is the practical reason to stay there? Right? The building is wrecked. There's a giant hole that has ripped through the basement, right? The garage floor, the second floor, the attic, and the roof. there's a giant gaping hole through every single floor of that building that by Ghostbusters 2 has been fixed. So why? And then thinking about Winston being able to walk right back into the building at the end of Afterlife, let's suppose for a second that there was never a Starbucks there, or even that there was and it was just on the first floor and leased out. Why does Winston still have access and ability to get in and out of the building? And the answer to me is the containment unit. Like the need to sort of keep the chain of custody, if you will, on the containment unit and make sure that it does its job and doesn't suddenly fail means that there has to be some chain of custody over the building. Does that make some sense?
Yeah.
If the containment unit is destroyed in this movie and there are other containment facilities in New York, what's the rationale for why you need the firehouse? And so like, that's the thing that started to ring through my brain is going, they could totally wreck the firehouse. They could just move, they could be like burning down the Batcave. You can build another Batcave somewhere else. You can also have like, Batman's, what's the tower he has that I can't think of the name of now. That's like inside of a clock. It's like it's like a backup Batcave that's inside of a clock in Gotham City. And the Batman fans listening to the podcast right now are like, you idiot, it's called this. But like he has several bases of operations around Gotham City. And even like when you get to something like, the last Chris Nolan movie, it's like, oh, what do we do about the future and what's going on with Gotham? I'll just burn down my whole mansion and blow up my Batcave, like disappear myself and then reappear maybe somewhere else later. So it makes me wonder if like the firehouse will get destroyed and maybe something else, or maybe it gets rebuilt on the site where it happens.
Yeah.
But I do wonder this too, given that they codenamed this movie Firehouse. Like, to me, that is about the setting. If you're to follow the Rust City paradigm of things, that was about the setting of the movie was in Rust City, this rusty old place. Most of this movie is likely taking place inside the firehouse. And maybe it will be the last time. Who knows? I don't know. But like, to me, it feels like the stakes are high enough for that to happen. I'm not rooting for the firehouse to get destroyed. Anybody out there right now who's like, Jim, you're a bad fan. You want them to do what? Like, no, I'm not. But I totally think it could happen. And I think they could turn around, as you said, and be like, well, they're walking into a rebuild project. Maybe the final epilogue moments are like construction teams rebuilding a facility on the side of the firehouse,
Yeah.
But I feel like that potential is there. That phrasing of we should stay here and defend this place, to me, suggests that the entirety of like the house even being there, like whether they just surrender it and run, meaning it's going to get destroyed, like the stakes are that high. They either stay and keep it and try to keep it, or they leave and they lose it. So the stakes of completely losing the firehouse are there for us in this movie.
Are we to believe that the entire thing is their fault? Like, I mean, it seems like the death chill that comes from this golden orb. They're screwing around with it. Ray's scanning it with a PK meter. It does its whole thing at the lab. Then Garaka's big goal, I'm assuming, is to get to the firehouse because it's making a beeline right there to tear open the containment unit and have its army of ghosts. This one kind of seems like it's on the Ghostbusters.
Yeah, no, a little bit. Like, I mean, it is, let's be fair. The first Ghostbusters in some ways is on the Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like the reason why the containment unit ruptures is because they design a laser grid containment system with no backup, right? And they're like, hey, oh crap, somebody flipped the switch off. We lost power. So now everything goes boom. But even in that, like before that scene, they're talking about the size of the big Twinkie. They're talking about how much PKE is in the grid and how well it's holding up. And they're like, not good. And so like a lot of what happens, I feel like, is the consequence of taking lots of paranormal entities and psychokinetic energy and deciding to bottle it all in one location, if that makes sense, right? Like, and so I think that does in some way mean that potentially it's their fault. But I think this is an interesting thing to consider. Garaka is making a beeline for the firehouse, but clearly the firehouse has been related to a previous freezing attempt, given what we know. Given these images we've seen of like these 19th century folks frozen in the firehouse. So potentially Garaka has some other link to the firehouse. Like maybe there's a, everything happens for a reason, call it fate, call it luck, call it karma kind of reason that the Ghostbusters ended up with Hook and Ladder 8 ended up going there and buying it, or rather leasing it, whatever they're doing the relationship with it is, and putting their containment unit there. But that the rationale for going there is not initially the containment unit. It's some prior historical thing that went on during that particular summer in the late 1800s. Does that make sense? Like,
you're saying the realtor from the first Ghostbusters is going to show up and she's going to help the Ghostbusters with a proton pack. I get you. She knew it all along.
But I mean, for real though, like, why is like,
no, I get you
could argue that she's going there. I keep saying she because I keep thinking of Garaka. I think I heard that people refer to Garaka as a he. I don't know who Emily Allen Lind is, so I've been trying to think that's been Garaka for a while. So I keep saying she, but we don't know what it is. You know, it's whatever it wants to be. But I think it's kind of weird that there is this scene of something that's already happened in the firehouse, right? Like that is unquestionably, that is the background they're in. It's not some other place in the 19th century. It's the firehouse. So what went on? And how did they dispel this threat when it happened 100 years prior or whatever? And what was the relationship between those objects that Kumail finds and potentially the firehouse?
I don't know. I don't know.
We're going to find out.
I don't know if you're looking at me for an answer. I don't got an answer, bro.
No,
I don't have an answer.
The movie has the answers.
We're going to find out in less than 2 months.
Yeah.
But no, that is interesting because it's almost like a twofer. You get your army and legion of ghosts, but at the same time, you're resolving this crazy issue or problem or something that's attracting you back to this firehouse. Yeah, it's I'm really looking forward to seeing exactly the narration and kind of like the just the tale of this Garaka thing, because really we have no idea aside from here's an orb, it can do this is what it looks like. We've got nothing whatsoever. I mean, throughout the years, there's been so much lore added to like the whole Gozer stuff. Vigo was just kind of there, you know, he died, put him in a painting. There's his soul, whatever. River Slime. Okay, whatever. We just kind of accepted it. But, yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing kind of what we find out about Garaka. Cause I think from a design standpoint, like the way this thing freaking looks, it's toyetic as hell. I need a legit toy of this thing and not a
Funko Pop,
a freaking Funko Pop. Also, if anybody from Ilphonic is listening, I know you guys likely already have your upcoming DLC ready to go, but we need Garaka. If it's not Garaka, I'm gonna be sad.
Yeah, even if you just need to replace one of those Overlord class ones, just reskin it.
yeah. Also, Pukey is like a must. You got to throw Pukey into like the Ectoplast class.
Yeah, that character is going to be interesting to kind of see where it came from, and that's, you know, I hope this. That's what I'm getting at. I hope all these things have backstories. I want to have development, you know, as opposed to just moments where we see it. So just so we can recap, you know, I want the firehouse to get destroyed. I want like you know, for Walter Peck to just go away. I'm kidding. I don't want any of these things. So,
you know, I feel bad for
who?
Muncher.
Yeah, man.
Poor boy. Great design, great concept. Eats metal, shoots it out like bullets. You know, just a good gimmick all around. And the new movie has Slimer in it, and it's like, okay, Slimer's back, no more Muncher. But then they just throw in Pukey, and Pukey looks freaking awesome. I mean, Pukey goes by that old kind of concept they have a Slimer of like, once you see him for the first time, you remember him. Like, you know, a kid, if a kid saw Pukey, it was like, okay, draw Pukey. That kid can draw, you know, Pukey almost instantly. It's really just eyes, potato body, and like a weird mouth with like jagged teeth. That's it. So it kind of fits that old school, what makes a good Ghostbusters character, you know, a good Ghostbusters character. But to me, it just further replaces poor old Muncher. And I know it doesn't make sense for him to be in the movie because it was Somerville and all that. And I'm not asking for Muncher to be in the movie. I just feel like there was more potential with that ghost. And I hope that down the road, you know, if that Netflix show materializes, because we haven't seen anything about it in quite a while. I'm not asking for, you know, Muncher to have his own late night cartoon animated series, but I hope they throw my I hope they throw my pudgy 6-arm little, you know, bro a bone, and they throw him in that because that was a cool character.
I now want there to be a late night talk show that's run by Muncher, where he just invites guests on and then shoots metal at them and they run. It happens every night.
It'd be like an amazing, like in between like if you've got like a Ghostbusters animation block, 2 cartoons every week, and in between you just have like a 3-minute segment of Muncher just like spitting at a celebrity. It just
It's
changes every
Muncher.
week.
No, it's Muncher shooting metal at a dog named Ferdinand.
Oh.
But I wonder. I mean, Muncher's still got to be out there somewhere. They never caught him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like unless we were to find out in the comic book they did before they left Somerville. But
Well, I mean, the ghost traps opened at the end, and all the ghosts kind of got sucked in. Who knows? You know,
who knows?
Maybe he's
He
at
could
the
be there.
lab. He could be at the lab.
Maybe Pukey is his son, and they play baseball together and do things. Pukey pukes up metal, and we're gonna find out. We'll see. This is ridiculous, but. What's your take on Slimer being back? What did you think about seeing him in action in the trailer?
I mean, love. Yeah. I mean, I saw a few people online like comparing him, to the original and like trying to like nitpick. And if you have to nitpick the design of this Slimer, you get some help.
Yeah,
because the look of this thing is fantastic.
Yep.
People are like, oh, it's all CGI. It's CGI being added, but there is an actual Slimer that they used for this movie.
Yeah, no, it's practical.
It's a practical, they add kind of like the aura around him and stuff like that. I'm sure they kind of like, spruce up some of the coloring and stuff, which you do in films. But I think from a design standpoint, like they really stay true to like that Steve Johnson design. And the fact now that we can get so many more or so many different, like such different animated shots of this character.
Right.
Like beforehand, the way Slimer, came at Peter Venkman in the Sedgwick Hotel, you had the camera kind of dormant and, you'd see Slimer and then you'd see Peter and then Slimer. But the fact now that we got the camera right on Slimer's face as he's going towards Finn and the camera's pulling with him, such a cool shot. And also seeing Slimer actually slime someone. Because that's the thing with the first movie is it happens off screen. You see Dan running, he's in there, and then it's like, oh, he's slimy. But in this one, you see what happens when somebody gets slimed.
Right.
And it's kind of horrifying in the respects of like, Slimer kind of goes through and he's got to kind of push a little bit more to kind of get his rotund backside through him.
Yeah, and Finn is or rather, Trevor is literally spitting out slime.
Mm-hmm.
Like in that scene, like he has managed to not the slime did end up in his body. Like it's it's in his mouth.
In his
it's
stomach.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. Like it's coming up from his throat area.
Right.
At least that's what I believe. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a scene I'm just not, checking out here or what have you, and they spliced out of there. But I'm under the belief that when you get slimed, which makes sense.
Yeah.
As much as it can make sense for ghosts and such like that to be able to slime you. But yeah, it's going to get caked into your insides and it's going to come up. Yeah. I mean, I would think logically, if this was real, it would probably kill you instead. But I mean, I just have a feeling like Slimer going through you with like a mouthful of Cheetos, like your heart would explode upon impact. But I guess, spitting up slime's better than dying.
Do you think they'll catch him?
I don't think so. Like there is that scene where Trevor is definitely back up in the attic with the proton pack on and he's firing. So I'm assuming that he's going to try and go back up there and go after Slimer. But whether or not he's successful, I don't see it really happening. One thing I find it weird. I can't really think of the trapping sequence inside that attic. Like it's such a small space. It was kind of weird to shoot. And again, with the real Ghostbusters influence and with Slimer, I just feel like there's a better story and better marketing in him being that slightly happier ghost.
Yeah.
And I don't think you trap that.
No, I'm kind of feel like if they had the ability to trap that, or if they had gotten it done, he would have been in the lab already. Mm-hmm. Like we would have seen him there. Like, look, he's back and he's in the lab because they've had him for 40 years. Like we've been trapping these things for 40 years. It does make me wonder, like, is he actually the most like powerful ghost in New York City? because he doesn't get caught. He's had 40 years of being on the lam after being caught, right? He was once caught. They did get him out of there. They've got him out of the Sedgwick. He's been living in the firehouse since, arguably. So I will say this. I really want to know why. I want to know why he's there. And I've had this conversation and people are like, because he's the firehouse and that's where they left him and it's the Ghostbusters. And I'm like, yeah, they haven't been there. So why did he stick around? Like, what was he could go anywhere. Why is he now bound to the firehouse as opposed to being bound to the Sedgwick?
Where is he also getting this food supply from?
Well, I originally said that he was going to get it from the Starbucks.
I know that, but I mean, you're seeing like in the trailer, like he's got the Cheeto bags and the Stay Puft marshmallow bags and all this other food and everything like that. Like, are we to believe that he's just going to the corner store, like down the street, and then
they
just
know him down at the bodega and
yeah. Or like he's trying to be like low key and he does like late at night when everybody's closed. He just kind of sneaks in and grabs his stuff.
It's like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Remember when they would go and put on those long trench coats and the hats?
Slimer
in the cartoon
did that
to go out in the
animated series. There's the scene where he's wearing the trench coat and the hat. So I mean, that would not be new to him.
I don't know what he's paying for food with. I think he's probably still stealing it. But
yeah. Well, that's the coat. It's got big pockets.
But it's kind of weird because like it's also interesting to consider that like is apparently bringing all of that back to the firehouse. Right, like when we saw him at the Rodriguez bar mitzvah in the video game, or when we saw him in the Sedgwick ballroom, he was just like, I will consume here and now. But the notion that like now he's hoarding things in the attic, it's like, wow, okay, things have changed, Slimer.
The pandemic was really rough for Slimer.
Well, that Starbucks downstairs went out of business is part of why.
Yeah, it was really rough, man. Like he was afraid he didn't have a food supply. He had to start rationing it out. Like he woke up. He woke up during that time. Poor guy.
I'm really like, I'm excited he's back in the movie. And I said this a couple weeks ago that like seeing those images from Empire like gave me the first like sort of strong nostalgic feel that I've had since like the first images of the firehouse. And even those now don't give me a sense of nostalgia because it's like, this is the setting of the movie, one. And two, like the Ghostbusters firehouse is always the Ghostbusters firehouse. So it's not like I haven't seen it, but I haven't seen Onion Head, that particular version of Slimer, since 1984. Like that's almost to me, like coming back to, Afterlife and the anticipation you had of seeing the Ghostbusters again, seeing Slimer again. And I don't mean like, this is no shade at Ghostbusters 2, but like, I'm talking about the OG original guy, right? Not the things that followed and kind of were like, hey, here's the more cartoony version of him. But I am sort of interested to see like, what is his persona going to be in this movie? Is he going to be like OG Onion Head? Or is he going to be like Slimer who drives a bus and takes Lewis to the museum? Like, do they have a relationship with him after Ghostbusters 2 where he became sort of the house ghost that they just put up with because he helped to save the day? Or is this a situation where like, we're going to turn around and find out that like, no, that was kind of an anomaly that he decided to help Lewis, and it would be weird to turn a blind eye to everything that happened in Ghostbusters 2, but then to like cherry pick this one little thing of like, hey, Slimer, he drove a bus. Right. He got Lewis there. Lewis told us about this. He's not so bad after all. Yeah. And like, it just kind of snowballed from there. It'd be a weird fit. It would be, right? Like if they suddenly just were to say, hey, slime blowers are in this movie and slime, like pink slime is in this movie and the research labs and things. But, oh, by the way, let's just kind of forget that part of Ghostbusters 2 where Slimer was kind of integral to getting Lewis to the museum and you just throw it out. It wouldn't make a lot of sense. So I feel like there's going to have to be some sort of acknowledgement like that the OGs are going to have to be like, oh, you ran into the big green guy? Yeah, he's been here a long time. Like, why haven't you caught him? Well, he usually doesn't cause any problems for us. And occasionally he actually helps out like that. And just that enough would be sort of enough to be like, why is he there? Why didn't they bust him? Like, yeah, it's like the only other like scenario I could see or not even really see, but I was thinking was like, what if someone like Winston or Janine who is popping in there to maintain the place and like help it out and stuff like that, they discover him and he's timid, he's frightened, right. He's not doing well. And they could be bringing in the food, just something like that. But to me, it would be Janine. Winston, right? Like that,
That's
because
what
that
I
would
mean.
sort of pay off and follow through on like Janine and Slimer in the firehouse.
Yeah.
From the cartoon.
And because if it's Winston to me, why wouldn't Winston then take him to the lab? Like,
Right.
Why wouldn't that would just make sense?
Right.
If you're looking to study and stuff like that, especially a case where a ghost is becoming seemingly, either timid or happy or whatever the case is, having Janine as like his kind of his sugar mama, bringing him all the sugar daddies and all the other candy and stuff like that. That would fit nicely. That would fit pretty well. And the fact too that it seems like she's in from the get-go, like they're going to be at the Ghostbusters, they're operational from what we've been told right when this movie begins. So she's going to be at the firehouse. She could have been there the whole time, again, checking up on it and stuff like that. And she's been feeding Slimer. It's like a puppy, that.
Yeah. I mean, look, if she has a long-term relationship with Egon to help pay his bills, why wouldn't she also have one with Slimer for like all this time? Sort of, maybe she doesn't go back and see him once every week, but it's like occasionally she goes by the firehouse because Winston's like, hey, can you go check up on this thing or whatever? And she runs across him in the way you're talking about. And she's like, all right, well, you were nice to Lewis, and Lewis was my boyfriend once.
Yeah.
So Lewis told me about this. I didn't believe him when he said it, but it's actually turned out to be true. And I mean, we're going to see. This is all obviously like deep speculation that could totally not pay off in the movie at all. But I want to know, like, what is he doing there? What was he doing for 40 years? Just being like, I'm in this empty building, hanging out, trying to find food in other places, and then bringing it back here, making a mess of the attic.
Yeah, it's a weird fit, especially, I mean, even if you were to some degree disregard Ghostbusters 2 and be like, okay, Slimer's haunting of that didn't really happen, because they kind of cut a lot of that whole Lewis and Slimer bit. He clearly is all about leaving. Even Ghostbusters 1, like once that grid blows up, he's gone. He's eating hot dogs. He's eating hot dogs. He's flying at the screen at the end of the film. Like, he is out and about. So he has no attachment, no ties to that firehouse whatsoever. So I kind of feel like it could be a thing where he's just, that's the place he knows eventually. Maybe he goes back there. Maybe there's some weird attachment to Peter, the sliming, the Sedgwick. I don't know.
That's true. There's also, I mean, that is a cartoon thing too, right? Is like, he's, as much as Peter claims to hate Slimer over and over again, they have like a relationship, like that is kind of like a guy who puts up with his wife's cat.
And I mean, who knows? Maybe Peter is randomly, I can't see him popping in and out of the firehouse, but who knows? Maybe there's a relationship there. But yeah, I would bargain to say that Janine seems like probably the most likely of characters. And at the same time too, you don't have Egon there for Janine. You don't have Lewis there for Janine. So to have, and I guess you kind of have, Peter, and you have Ray, and you got Winston, and obviously they're going to kind of ham it up with between Peter and Janine. But I feel like there's not that direct emotional attachment.
Right.
But you can kind of do that with the Slimer, because if you do have that as the backstory, you've got that, like, again, almost like a puppy kind of scenario, like a dog scenario where, this is kind of hers. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm eager to see what that is going to be. What is the explanation, and what is his role? Like, does he have other moments in this movie other than just, hey, they found him in the attic and Finn tried to catch him and couldn't? I would imagine he has to have a more important role in the movie than that, given the amount of work they did to bring him in. They could have just gone with any other ghosts in any other context, but they did the effort to bring us that version of Slimer for a reason. So
at the same time, maybe Finn just finds him. He slimes him. Finn tries to get him again, and that's all. And they never give us an explanation whatsoever.
Maybe. I mean, it's totally possible.
Fans lose their freaking minds.
What if
they just don't understand?
What if the reason that Finn Wolfhard gets a license in real life finally is because Slimer teaches him to drive?
Oh, that'd be nice. The ending is actually just like, they do like the opening narration, like driving Miss Daisy, and Finn's just driving Slimer around. I got this friend named Muncher.
That's what they need to add to that VR Quest game. The Slimer driving school. You have to drive a bus under the direction of the Green Ghost. Any other thoughts you have about the trailer? I mean, we've kind of just like pulled some random things out of this that I've been thinking a lot about. And so other thoughts you have about the trailer?
It's hard to kind of sit down and just, do the standard trailer dissection just because, I mean, there's two of them, right? Like it's more so just kind of pick and choose and kind of grab what you want out of them there. Yeah, nothing really overly kind of like, I mean, I think we kind of discussed it all. Like there's a lot that stand out to me, but I think we kind of touched on the vast majority, pretty much, I mean, everything really. I'm very excited over the tone, how they're kind of handling all the characters, at least from what it appears like. And I think I'm also kind of surprised that it seems like we're going to see slightly larger roles for, the originals, the OGs. Yeah. It seems like Bill may show up a little later in the movie, just judging by that, would you need my assistance type of line. But the fact that we're going to have Danny in there and Ernie and Annie and such like that, like pretty much right from the get go. And you've got Dan with his own narrative and kind of story of, not being able to be a Ghostbuster really anymore.
Right.
But obviously being a Ghostbuster likely later in the film and assisting and helping out and showing that he's still got it, that kind of redemption arc. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. But at the same time too, seeing how these kind of characters have evolved, like we were introduced in Afterlife, seeing kind of the new dynamic of Phoebe. It seems like she may be wrestling with a few things in that kind of chess scene. Maybe is Egon back, seeing what she's going through. Also wrestling with kind of possibly Egon, his death, even though he never really knew him or anything. Right. Trevor, the fact that there's that shot of him in the attic looking at the magazine, they're focusing in on Harold Ramis, on Egon Spengler. I'm kind of curious to see if they're going to kind of touch on that a little bit more so. And at the same time too, the Spengler dynamic in terms of exactly who was the mother.
Yes.
I don't think they need to answer that, but the fact that we're back at the firehouse now and there's going to be so much talk with these original stars, like these original characters, it feels like if anybody would know who it would be them.
Agreed.
It would be
Yeah.
Peter, it would be Ray, especially being, going to college and everything with him and such. So I'm kind of curious if they're going to dive more into that too.
Yeah, I would like to know the answer to that question. I know it's not important for us to know it, but like I would like to sort of get that resolved, if for no other reason than everyone who gets upset about, well, Egon would never have left a family, or like, it would be good to know why. I just think it would be, but I also think it's a lot to try and jam into this movie, given how many people are going to be in it. So I don't know if we'll get it. But yeah, I think you're right that that's something that is sort of a noteworthy thing to consider. And this whole notion of like the Spengler legacy, I think, is one that, although Egon's not in the movie, like, and Gil has said that explicitly, like this movie does not have Egon Spengler in it, which is why I really wonder what's going on in the chess scene. You have Walter Peck in the opening moments of the domestic trailer saying, the Ghostbusters after 40 years have returned, right? And who's leading them but descendants of Egon Spengler. And so it's like, he's evoking it and pointing to this legacy, which I thought was weird, honestly, when I listened to it in the trailer, because I'm like, Egon Spengler is basically a dude who looked at you once and said, "Your mother," and then it's dumped a bunch of marshmallow crap on you from the sky. I don't really know how much you know Egon Spengler, but it's kind of, it is going to be kind of interesting to see how the legacy of Egon continues and sort of pays off with the Spengler family. And I'm interested to sort of see too, like, what is the dynamic going to be with Paul Rudd? Like, he seems to be fitting in a way, like with Trevor, like in that scene with, it's kind of stupid, but like the Peck scene, you have Paul Rudd saying a dumb thing of just being like, overruled, as if that makes any sense in the context. And then Finn very proudly behind him being like, sustained, like he's got his back, and you're like, so what's the relationship going to be between now, like Finn, or rather, I keep saying Finn, but rather between Trevor and Gary, right? They didn't have a relationship in that last movie.
No.
Like that was like his entrance point to the family was Phoebe and podcast. So, what other really important thing I hope we learn by the end of this movie? What is that
What's
kid's
that?
real name?
Yeah. I assume we'll get that. And I mean, that's the other thing too, is, podcast, he apparently makes the track in from Somerville to to New York City. I'm assuming maybe that ties up with like the whole like Spirits Unleashed kind of concept of like maybe having like what is it, like a student kind of visit you?
Intern, they said would be coming soon, right?
Yes.
In the game.
Maybe an intern, something along those lines when it comes to podcast. I'm
so excited about them. I'm not even going to like pretend I'm not. Like the potentiality for Logan Kim and Dan Aykroyd shenanigans is so high, and I'm so excited about it. Like I really think that this is going to be a situation where Ray is supposed to be mentoring podcast, but podcast is really mentoring Ray. Like I really think it's
there is that argument I saw from quite a few people like, hey, where's the comedy? First of all, I feel like both trailers had a good amount of comedy for a 2-minute long trailer that also is going to be like the movie's going to be also action based and a little bit of horror. But really, the podcast Ray Stantz, kept wanting to call him Danny Aykroyd, podcast and Ray Stantz dynamic, like that twosome, their moment together in Afterlife, that very brief moment is just gold. So to imagine that we may get numerous of that, especially when things start to go down. I'm looking forward to that.
I mean,
and
I think podcast is going to be the reason why there's a line outside of Ray's Occult. It's going to be this web show that he starts doing that is going to go viral and be the reason why this kind of goes down. And so getting back to that question of like, do the Ghostbusters do this to themselves? It's like, yeah, kind of, but it's also going to be podcast's fault. Which I don't really think it's going to be his fault, but it's kind of fun to consider.
I mean, if maybe, if it's the whole Ghostbusters thing, like the whole, like really all the main canon ones, it's just everybody being in the perfect place at the perfect time.
Yeah.
Like Ghostbusters 2, especially the fact that after everything that happened in the first one, you've got it where out of everybody out there, it's got to be Dana Barrett's kid. Like how many people are in New York City? It's got to be Dana's kid. Who? Oh, she's working at the museum. Oh, there's the Vigo painting. Oh, Janosch now has, didn't even know beforehand, but now Janosch has taken a liking to her.
Right.
And it just so happens to be the baby that you already tried to abduct, Vigo. Like, wow, this is just so random. So yeah, there's a weird kind of like happenstance, I guess. Just trouble finds them. But yeah, again, I feel like in this new one, they're definitely going to be the ones that are semi at fault for unleashing this thing, at least from what the trailers kind of make it out to be. But that's kind of the Ghostbusters way. Plus, I mean, they've saved the world X amount of times already. They got a freebie. They can cause massive destruction here and there. It's fine.
By the end of the movie, I really hope that we get to find out what podcast's name is. I hope that we get some backstory about where Slimer's been. I hope that we get some explanation about how Walter Peck became, whatever he is, because that way he doesn't feel as shoehorned in. But ultimately, I really hope we get to see an amazing ghostbusting battle at the end of this. Like the idea that we're going to have that many people with proton packs and equipment on in one scene is gotta be like pretty awesome battle. And I say that because like a lot of ghostbusting is not all that dynamic. The car chase stuff is, but the actual like standing there with throwers is not that dynamic.
Point a stick at it. That's what it is.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it and then like for it not to happen and then people think they're going to be really, upset over it. Because I'm not. But one thing I would love to see, and with the final battle clearly being this big epic moment, possibly in the firehouse, with that real Ghostbusters dynamic. I mean, Afterlife, they saved that Ray Parker Jr. tune for the end.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it would be so impactful to conjure up that real Ghostbusters vibe. And you've got it where people are flipping on their proton packs. You're going head to head with Garaka. And then the instrumental Ray Parker Jr. song hits. The busting starts. You've got the lyrics coming in then. That's something for me I would love to see on the big screen. I don't know if we'll get it. It's something that I don't know if it translates well to live action.
Right.
Maybe it's best to, keep it in the animated realm. But man, just
You're
those
right.
were always
though.
my favorite.
It would be fun,
Yeah,
like to get the music
Yeah.
sting like kicking in that way. Yeah, like because it was how like every real Ghostbusters cartoon episode of busting had like what the final busting. There might have been other busting in the episode, but it was
you
not
had to-
the final
No.
bust. You know,
you had that cool kind of score music kicking in, or you had like Tahiti singing their songs in the first couple seasons. But the actual anthem, the real Ghostbusters theme song, I mean, that was that you knew it was coming to an end when you heard that song.
Mhm.
You know, it was that riff at the beginning. You knew that the story wasn't going to play out any longer. This was the finale. And I would love for them to do that in Firehouse. Again, I really don't think it's going to happen,
no, right.
but I hope it happens.
It would be cool. Yeah. No, I mean, you're allowed to pipe dream, right? Like, I mean, I've been dreaming of a 112 Ecto 1 for years and
Hey,
probably never going to see it, but you know,
my pipe dream storyline,
what's that?
Callie Spangler's mother,
Yeah.
toaster of slime. I know the timelines don't match up. They don't have to.
You think that when he was sleeping with it,
Yeah. Put in the toaster. And then the next morning it just like popped up and there was a baby.
it would be messed up if like that was how the movie resolved. It was like
Oh
they got
my
to
God.
they got to the end and it was like she could suddenly be like, "You're not going to win because I'm part ghost."
Oh God.
And she just like raises her arms and all of the statues in the city all dismount from their pedestals and begin marching with the Statue of Liberty like, "She commands us." She's part slime.
That's the other thing too. We did see the Statue of Liberty in the teaser trailer. I am wondering if maybe in the film we're going to see a quick scene of the Statue of Liberty like frozen, like
Yeah.
freezing up a bit, like the actual I mean, that would just be a cool shot with like all the water and everything, just kind of seeing it, kind of the ice seep to it, take it over. Yeah. I'd be down for that. Any nods to Ghostbusters 2, I'm down for it.
Yeah, they're always fun. I'm super excited, as much as I've been a little bit cynical perhaps about, I don't think I'm being cynical. I think I'm just being a nitpicky person who worries about things too much, probably. I'm not like, you're like, it's going to suck. Like, I don't think that's true at all. I just want our characters to get their moments, if that makes sense. Like I want that development. If I'm going to care about Walter Peck, I want there to be a good reason to. So hopefully we're going to get that backstory, but either way, like we're going to get an awesome movie. Like there's no question in my mind based on these two trailers that we're going to get a great story. We're going to get a really cool car chase scene, which I'm really excited about because with that, even when we were originally seeing that get filmed and sort of leaked out a bit back in June because it was shot on a Saturday in broad daylight in Midtown New York City. So everyone who was a tourist pulled out their phones and was like, look, we knew that was going to happen, but to sort of see it coming together and be composited together as a full-blown scene is cool.
Kudos to Sony for like fixing up that footage, because like so much of that was like shot during like the wildfires and everything, right? Like when the sky of New York was like red.
Yep. And they had smoke, like it was like muddying up the, sort of the picture for a lot of things that were being shot. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, maybe we'll see like a little kind of inkling of that somewhere in the full film, but I mean, Sony, they're good at what they do. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's going to look fine.
I'm really excited about it, and I can't wait to see this movie. We're now we're less than 2 months away from this thing. It's kind of crazy to think about it, but we're really at this point something in the ballpark like 7 weeks away from watching this movie. Given that you also know February is a short month, so. Yeah. Maybe the next news we'll find out is whether or not people are going to be going to a premiere or where that's going to be happening or any of those kinds of things, since we now know we have trailer. I don't really know that I think this is it on trailers, right? Like, I don't think we should expect.
We'll have a final
more,
trailer.
Do you?
Like we'll get a final trailer.
You think
definitely.
so?
I mean, Afterlife had one. Yeah. I think we'll definitely get, that one last shot burst. But it's weird though, the fact that like, to do your main trailer now, but at the same time too, like that teaser trailer was not a teaser trailer.
No, it was definitely just a full blown trailer. Like that was called the teaser. Yeah.
Yeah. We have 3 trailers already.
Yeah.
The 4th will hit. I figure the 4th one, that'll be your launch trailer. probably run a minute 30, minute 15. You know, have a little bit shorter, a little sizzle reel, your best shots, very quick overarching story of Garaka and all that stuff. But yeah, I think we'll get at least one more.
Do you want to know?
Kind of like,
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I was just gonna say, I think we're gonna get one more about that, like that week beforehand, just to kind of bring in, grab the attention of the general audience once again, because not everyone is like us that sit here and discuss the film at length
for 2 hours. to discuss the advertising for the film for 2 hours. Like,
I think Slimer's going down to the local bodega, like these are things we got to work. The pandemic was really harsh on them. It's just a bad state. I don't know if Starbucks ever really went in the firehouse. Normal people don't have these types of conversations.
They don't, but that's okay. I appreciate being abnormal and abnormal with you because you're a great person to be abnormal with.
Well, I thank you. I share that sentiment, and you know what? I hope they never give Walter Peck any backstory, and he ruins the film for you.
I hope they do give him a backstory, but it's completely nonsensical. Like that, because I've asked for it. It's like, well, after he worked for the EPA, he went into working as an ice cream man. He gave up all environmentalism whatsoever, and he opened a Mr. Softy truck, and he used that to help communities because he was out doing fundraising opportunities for local schools that were getting 10% kickbacks on all the ice cream he sold, and that built his political capital, and that's what paved his way into the future because he cared about the children and ice cream. Like, that's a ridiculous backstory, but like,
he gets fired from his job at the EPA following the events of the first Ghostbusters. And then we found out that he becomes a roadie for Bobby Brown, which gives us our on our own moment. They use some CGI. They have him like on the stage dancing. It's a cutaway. And then you just have Walter Peck, like just angry looking behind the scenes. Just, I'm going to get those Ghostbusters one day. And then Bobby Brown he's up there and he starts singing about Vigo and Ghostbusters, and like Walter Peck loses it, rushes the stage, hits Bobby B, gets fired. And then that further, kind of burns the hatred there. And then, I don't know, maybe he owns a vodka company after that. And then like Ray makes his own vodka and like puts him out of business. He just hates the Ghostbusters all around. I don't even know what I'm talking about at this point.
He just doesn't like them at all. He's like, after I was in the movie, or after I had these dealings with him in 1984, Peter Venkman stole a parking space from me.
Just he's done with him.
People should like now send in like their worst ideas for the Walter Peck backstory. I will totally appreciate receiving those and sifting through them. It's people like, he was a kung fu master. And
I mean, you could just act like he was undercut, like he was doing his own thing. He really wasn't on the up and up. And like, he's actually connected in like the Die Hard saga, right? Like,
hey, I was going to say earlier when you said that, Ghostbusters 2 has the same thing happening to Dana Barrett. I mean, so does Die Hard, right? Like, that's literally a moment in Die Hard 2 when, like, Bonnie Bedelia's character, Holly McClane, is like, why does this always happen to us? After they've, like, stopped the planes that are, supposed from crashing at, was it Dulles or Reagan Airport in that movie or whatever it is, right? So, yeah. And in that movie, it's funny you said that we kind of mentioned this because that was the movie that I was thinking about of how I don't necessarily want William Atherton to appear. Like, the only reason he's in that movie is he happens to book the same flight as Holly McClane at the same time as he has a restraining order from Holly McClane, and his seat just happens to be close enough that he's telling the flight attendants he needs to be moved because of the restraining order. And there's like no reason that any of that should be happening. It's just is.
For the record, I mean, there is that additional scene in the international trailer where Winston and Peter and the group, they're outside the firehouse, it looks like, and they're talking to media, and you do see William Atherton, Walter Peck there. So I almost feel like, I don't want to say it could be like maybe the beginning, maybe the end. I kind of feel like maybe it's a weird ending moment where like this is Walter Peck's redemption. He's waiting for Winston to like stop talking, and he's going to approach them, and he's sorry, and he's going to apologize, and then he's going to hand them like a $800 bill for like the dry cleaning he's been holding on to it for years, and you owe him. You owe him.
He's like, here's all my medical bills for all the chiropractic services I needed.
He's holding them accountable, and like Peter laughs, and he's like, maybe you should talk to my lawyer. And in comes Lewis
Tully.
Lewis Tully.
I know he's probably not going to show up by the end of the movie, but I really want him to. It just kind of, if I got one walk-on cameo that needed no background explanation at all, that would be it. I'm like, fine. Yeah. I totally do with it. He walked in the door at the end of the movie. He was like, "Hi, Janine, I brought your lunch." Like, and they just left. I'd be like, wow, they got Rick Moranis to come back to New York and do things. And he didn't get punched in the face. That's great.
All his scene is at the end is just him trying to get through the doors, like at the ending of Ghostbusters 2. Just walks through one, walks through the other, walks through one, walks through the other.
That's why he's not in the movie. He was trying to get into the firehouse for the entire movie, but he never makes it inside. As much as I offer up my concerns when we do things like this, I am very excited about this movie, and I'm excited that we got to talk about it a bunch. I'm hopeful that we'll get to experience it maybe together at some point. That would be very cool, but if not, we'll experience it vicariously together. But yeah, you
kind of referenced it earlier, but there's really been no inkling or indication yet from Sony Pictures Ghost Corps or anything in terms of premiere, if they're going to be doing one in LA, if they're going to be doing one in New York City. There's really been like no talk of that whatsoever. So hopefully we learn of that. I mean, we should be learning from that in like the next couple of weeks, right? Like,
one would hope.
We don't have that far to go.
Yeah. I mean, we're 7 weeks away, so plane tickets are expensive. They only get more expensive closer to when you want to fly. So
crying in Canadian. Hey?
Yeah, at least if I want to go, and I mean, to be fair, I have no idea if I'll have an opportunity to go to anything. I could be like, I want to go to a premiere, and somebody be like, yeah, I want $1 million. Get fucked. but realistically, I don't have to get a passport to go. You do. You already have a passport, I imagine.
I do. Yeah, I do have a passport, so I'm at least good on that accord. So shouldn't be too much of a headache. But yeah, I'm hoping that they do something. I'm craving a slice of New York pizza, so I got to say, if there's one in New York, I'll likely head to that one. Plus, with the firehouse, I mean, the fact that you're condemning it, you're saying that it's going to get like eradicated in this film.
I didn't say
feel
that.
like I feel like I should have at least one last moment with it before my mind thinks of it as being gone.
To be fair,
I know it's still going to be standing in New York, but
the exterior will be standing in New York. And if you want to see what the interior of the Ghostbusters firehouse might look like while it was being rebuilt after being destroyed, there's a recent video of a guy who actually got inside the LA firehouse in the last 2 weeks that I haven't really talked about in the podcast. I forgot about. But there's a guy who actually made it into the LA firehouse, and they are in reconstruction mode after doing lots more work on the flooring, it seems, in there and stuff for whatever it's going to become, but clearly not a firehouse anymore. So, if you want to have that experience, you just got to come down to Skid Row. Totally safe. Anybody can go.
You know what? My hat's off to anybody who not only goes down, and I don't want to like sound disrespectful or anything like that. To people that do live around the area or anything like that, but it is a tough area. It is a rough area. And when I went down to LA last time, I wanted to film some stuff there. And like, I was told directly by 3 people, do not bring your camera out there. Yeah. Like I had a pretty nice camera with me, and they were like, under no circumstances, like, do this. Don't do this. Just it was an unnecessary risk. So that was one area that I did sadly scratch off my of the places I needed to visit. Just because I didn't know if I could get a shot inside of the place, which likely I couldn't.
Right.
And B, just the risk involved, because it is a rough spot.
I agree with you, although I will say that the last time I drove down there, I think I've talked about this on the podcast. When you go down there, the street the firehouse is on is a one-way street. Mm-hmm. And there's a block that intersects it but does not go through it. So like you can come down the street and you hit the middle of the block you're on, and then you can make a turn onto the one-way street. You can't go straight because there's buildings in front of you. So I basically came down this middle point road, this intersecting road, and I saw the firehouse. And my brain kind of just went like mush. And I turned onto the road. And the next thing I heard was the entire neighborhood yelling out, "Wrong way!" And I was like, what? And I looked up and I was like, oh shit, I'm literally on the one-way road going in the wrong direction in front of the firehouse.
Oh God.
So thank you, Skid Row residents, for preventing me from being too stupid to understand which direction to drive. But I was disoriented, and I totally in the moment was like, there it is. It's the firehouse. I don't know if I'm able to get inside, but there it is. And I had totally just fucked it up.
You know what? Even though it's a rough place, they still have rules. It's glad that it's a good thing to know that, you know, even in locations like that, we're not in a state of the purge or anything like that.
No, it's not Mad Max.
You know, no. There's still laws. They know.
People still drive on the right side of the road, even in the midst of, you know, abject poverty and sadness. So, which again, that's not throwing shade on the firehouse at all. But no. I do think it's kind of funny. Like if you want to think about what a firehouse looks like being rebuilt, just head on down there.
I know that's one of the things when it comes to, like, I mean, it's been years too. The firehouse has been under construction, but one of the biggest things they were kind of mentioning about that is turning it into like a recreation center and kind of, you know, hoping to maybe like prosper that area up a little bit and kind of, you know, build it up and kind of maybe make a bit of a change in that area, and hopefully it passes. Yeah. You know, it happens.
I mean, there's an Extraplasm episode that's from like the first few weeks of Extraplasm that's all about this. That I don't remember the name of. It might be episode 10. I can't recall, but like it was a deep dive on this, right? And it's this notion that like it was supposed to be a youth arts center, but since then all of the kids have moved out of Skid Row, and all the other community services that served kids moved out of Skid Row because there was not kids in that environment. And so busing kids into that environment, be like, hey, let's bring kids down into Skid Row for field trips, also doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. That's why it's kind of confusing as to what it will end up being in the end, because it probably won't be the original use case that was approved by the voters. But in the meantime, they are down there working on it. And not that I'm telling people go try and bug workers if you actually have a hankering to see what that place looks like under a reconstruction. It's active. So they're back and they're doing work. And to me, that's exciting because I don't want to see that building go away. As much as it's in a bad spot, it is a piece of history and matters. So I hope that we get to see this movie and eat pizza together at some point.
Hey.
So let's keep that in the pile of hopes and dreams. Beyond that, anything else you want to add as we wrap up this episode of Extraplasm?
I think really again here, just my excitement level is through the roof, even though you may not, you know, find it in my voice right now or hear it in my voice right now. I love the 2 trailers that kind of came out there. Looking forward to seeing what else Ghost Corps, Sony Pictures has in store in terms of marketing tie-ins, because really these next 6-7 weeks, I mean, we're going to see probably quite a few things come out. I mean, obviously we just kind of had the icy leak. So there was that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Baby. Oh man, make that happen.
I don't really think there's a Firehouse Subs tie-in, but I absolutely think there should be. Like,
yeah, I mean, you can go in there, you can buy the Hook and Ladder sub. Yes. Like, come on now.
Their sub is their specialty sub is literally called the Hook and Ladder.
Yeah,
so
I like as Ghostbuster fans, we're like, it's Ghostbusters.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's totally fire themed, right? But we're like, but it's Hook and Ladder. It's not like every fire department has Hook and Ladder trucks.
Yeah. No, somebody was a fan of Ghostbusters that named that submarine sandwich.
That's what it's about. Yeah. That's the sandwich that they were trying to feed Slimer in Ghostbusters 2 in the deleted scenes.
But no, yeah, aside from Frozen Empire stuff, well, I mean, I guess kind of keeping with that, I do want to thank everyone that checked out the kind of coverage that I did, like the reaction, thought video and the breakdown video. The breakdown video did tremendous numbers for the Ghostbusters News YouTube channel as well. Coming up soon for people that dug we talked a lot about Firehouse, that dug the first part of the 3D printed Ghostbusters Firehouse build that I did. Part 2 should be coming out relatively soon, as well as pretty much videos, unboxings, all that jazz on like all the Hasbro merch that I've yet to really get to. Like everything from the Fright features to the 5-inch, I guess Fright features, whatever they're calling the Ecto Stretch Tech figures. That Slimer with the big old booty that grunts when you grab its tooth. Yeah, so all those videos are on the way there, probably over the next week or two. So a lot of content incoming.
Good. I enjoy your content, and I love that firehouse you're building, and I want one of my own. I think I'm just gonna like let my cat live in it. Is my plan for it. It's just like, here, you live in this now. It's your condo. But
I've got 2 cats, and one of my cats every single night now sleeps in the bottom floor. Like there's nothing there. Like it's got a bed that's super soft. It can sleep on my bed, super soft. It can sleep on the couch. It's got a hammock in the window, but it chooses the hard PLA print with ridges on it, very much like the original Kenner Firehouse.
Right.
And the funny thing is too, is in the front of the firehouse, I've got the AMC popcorn, Ecto 1 popcorn bucket.
Yeah, yeah.
So like it's fighting for space behind the Ecto 1. But every single night it lays there for like 3 or 4 hours. So I'm going to be, I've thought about when this thing is finished, how I'm going to display it. And I feel like, you know what? I'm going to likely have to build a second, and I may just turn it into a full blown cat house. Not put the floors in,
right?
Just add an extra side to it, and here's your cat house.
Yeah, man.
It looks like hook and ladder.
That's what I want. I'm serious.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want that. I want it so I can be like, hey, cool, you're hanging out in my office? Great. Go in your apartment.
Yep.
Oh, I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of that come together. And obviously all the content you're doing a great job of covering everything that's been coming out and being on top of all the news. And we didn't talk about the motocross thing because I forgot about it earlier, but like you've had so much going on in the last couple of weeks of content as the movie ramps up. So keep busting your butt at that, because you're doing a great job of covering everything.
Busting my butt?
Yeah, it's like always keep on busting, but instead it's like work hard. So I don't know. Like
okay. Keep busting your meat. I don't even know what you're talking about. Keep busting your butt.
I don't know that that's what I'm saying, but you have been working hard, and I appreciate that you have been on top of everything going on and keeping everybody up to date, and keep it up. You're doing amazing work. Everybody, of course, should be following you at Ghostbusters News on all of the social medias, except for on X, where your account is not called Ghostbusters News and is instead called, what is it? Like gbnews.com?
GB News. It's too long for X.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Ghostbusters News. It's a long name. It's a horrible name. And the problem too is that, there's also like an actual GB News out there, Great Britain News, that I kind of feel like they may have a slightly better handle on that name than what I do.
I kind of hope that they get emails from people who are like, hey, Jason, I wanted to share with you this thing about Slimer, and then it goes to them.
The really greatest thing that happens to me, man, is when I get tagged in like stuff about like, what is it? The Brexit it's called? I don't know. I'm not over there. Or like crazy happenings over in the UK. Rounding back to pandemic, like COVID and stuff like that. I was getting stuff like weekly on Twitter of like, or X, getting incorrectly just like tagged of like, oh, this is the new thing that just passed and all this stuff and everything like that. And it was just great to reply, just like random stuff. Like, I think you have the wrong account. And then just having, an image of Slimer, going towards them or what have you, just sending a random Bill Murray video or what have you. Yeah, I heard a few followers like that. So that's good.
Well, whether you're tuning in because you want information about Great Britain or Ghostbusters, gbnews.com on X, Ghostbusters News everywhere else.
Yeah, make sure you're saying Ghostbusters News. Yeah, okay, there we go. gbnews.com. That's the whole handle. GBNEWSDOT.
Right, COM. You have to literally like, it's a website I used to go to called /dot.org. Where
we're not telling you to actually type in gbnews.com.
Right. Don't do that. Type in ghostbustersnews.com in your browser. But on X, go to gbnews.com on X.
You know, there's a search feature. They can just type in Ghostbusters.
It really
News,
could.
and
It would just be a lot easier.
It'll recommend me. Yeah, like I'll pop up on X. It's fine.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
It's a long podcast, and we're just making it longer. We're good at it.
Look at for my logo with the goofy ghost face.
Yeah, that's frozen.
He's
over.
newscaster. He looks like a Muppet.
He's frozen though, so be careful.
It's like a frozen Muppet.
On that note, I want to thank you, of course, for coming on the podcast and joining us as usual. Because when you come on, it's always fun, and you always contribute a lot and share a lot with the community. So thanks for that. Thanks for all the hard work you do over at Ghostbusters News, and we hope to check in with you again real soon as we get just 7 weeks away from this movie. So thanks again, Jason.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Always. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you again soon. That about wraps things up on an XL-sized episode of Extraplasm. I want to say thank you once again to Jason Fitzsimmons for coming on the show and joining me and sort of pulling apart the 2 trailers that came out this week, breaking down the headlines, and, speculating about what it is that we're going to see in this upcoming movie, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, which we're now just about, 7 weeks away from. So thank you again to Jason. If you're not following him on social media, by all means, go and do that, because Jason has tons of content that is coming out literally every day of the week about Ghostbusters, and it's one of the most valuable sources on the internet in terms of the fandom. Beyond that, I want to say thank you as usual to Brendan Pearce of Badoochi Studios, who provides our logo and visual identity for the podcast, as well as vaporwave artist MAGNAVOX, whose version of Ghostbusters serves as our theme music every week. And of course, this is the part of the podcast where I thank you for listening, for tuning in. It's been really exciting to hear from folks as the trailers have dropped and to get speculation from people who are like, hey, this is what I think I saw. If you have things you want to share with me as you're breaking down the trailer, insights that you've got, or you just want to tell me about things that are going on with your franchise, with your group, whatever, of course, you can reach out to me at Extraplasm on social media on Instagram and X. Via email, you can reach me at extraplasompodcast@gmail.com. And over on Facebook, you can search for Extraplasm Podcast. And of course, the YouTube channel, where there's a recent review of the Phantasm Toys Viggy figures, is available at youtube.com/@extraplasm. So feel free to go check those places out. And, if you've got something to share, by all means, be in touch. And in the meantime, we've got about 7 weeks to count down until we get where we're going. So while we wait, make sure you do, as Ernie Hudson says every week,
try to have fun and always keep on busting. Take care.